Are we hot?
We are hot. Last guest writes the first question.
Yep.
And it's a mystery to both of us.
Secret Santa. What is something you do or did in your career that you never thought you would get to experience? Something that corporate America doesn't even know we do. That's interesting. Do or did in my career that I never thought I would do. Well, I think the big one is, has nothing to do with being a SEAL. It's going to Guantanamo Bay and being down there and working in a camp where they had terrorists that were rolled up and snatched up by special forces guys and keeping them alive, essentially. And not just keeping them alive, making sure they were comfortable, making sure they had everything they needed, making sure they had their prayer call 5 times a day. It wasn't disturbed. You couldn't even go in and out of the pods because it was disrespectful. Like, I never thought that that's what I would be doing in the military. I signed up to go after them and put them there or put them down. And the fact that I ended up there, it was humbling, completely unexpected, off my radar as far as what I was looking to accomplish. But that right there is, I still think about it to this day. It's like another world. It's almost like a dream because it just was a limbo period for me. It was good because it gave me plenty of time to train, and I had everything I needed to get back on track available to me. And it was good motivation to get through training because, when you're looking like eye to eye with somebody that hates you with everything they've got, it's like, all right, man, like, this is real and it's on. But, yeah, that'd be it.
You've got a unique perspective that probably a lot of military veterans don't have, is that prison guard aspect that a lot of law enforcement does, because we get those opportunities. If you're a deputy sheriff working in a county jail, you're a corrections officer, even a city cop who's got somebody in their local jail, you have that period that once they're out of the fight, I'll call it, and there's downtime, you can learn a lot from them. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that many on my side of the table always say is, a lot of times in a jail situation, as long as you're cool with them, they're usually pretty cool with you and they'll talk to you. Yeah. Did you find that with, call them terrorists, whatever you want to call them, were they cool, or were the majority of them just leave me the F alone?
It was a mixed bag. But I never like let my guard down, or, if they were trying to be nice or friendly, I'm like, dude, we're not friends, like, I did my job and I just tried to keep my nose clean because like I ended up in like the worst camp on the worst pod with the worst guys, and we would have to go in and extract them out of their cells every day because they were on a hunger strike. So, and then they wouldn't come out of their cells. So we had to like suit up with a shield and like, riot gear and go in and, take each one of them out of their cells. And they filmed it, and that went straight to the White House every day. Cause that was back when Obama had just gotten elected, and Gitmo was his big thing. It's like, I'm going to shut this place down. So we had to like document everything that we did. Right. And these guys were the worst because, they would just hold court in the middle of this pod. Once we extracted them, they're strapped in their chairs and they're getting, tube fed, and they would just hold court and, talk about, this, that, and the other, and it got to a point where I'm like, man, like, I'm just going to turn them around and put them in their cells, in their chairs, and just face into your cell. Like, this isn't like social hour, you know? So, and when I did end up on other pods, like with other guys, they call them detainees. I always called them terrorists, man, because I read why they were there. Like these weren't like, you know, wrong place, wrong time kind of people, you know, right. Like these people did some nasty stuff. And, you know, I was on other pods where some of them were, you know, they try to buddy up to you, you know, like, hey man, let me get a pinch of tobacco. I'm like, dude, no, like, we're not friends. This isn't like, you know, I'm not going to high five you on the way out or anything like that. Like, this is my job and this is, you know, your punishment. And, you know, but it was a high vis political situation, and it was delicate, you know, like everybody was watching, cameras were always on, you know, like, and it seemed to me that they would always, the Navy, meaning they, would always take the side of the detainees, these terrorists. Is like, you know, they had lawyers come in, and, you know, it was always just a thing. But yeah, they would try to buddy up to you and pal around and things like that. But, and some people, you know, I feel like the people that did kind of cozy up to him, it was almost like out of fear, you know. It's like, hey man, like, don't throw any shit on me, you know, don't throw your little cocktail on me. Like, we're cool, right? We're cool. Like, dude, do your worst, you know, like, so, but I mean, I can see the parallels between military and law enforcement, and, you know, I'm sure it's different when it comes to, you know, citizens of the United States that you're arresting and, you know, you put behind bars and you have a relationship with them. And that's kind of why I had my apprehensions about joining law enforcement, because my dad was a cop. You know, he was a SWAT team for 20 years, state trooper for 25. I mean, he's, you know, part of the reason why I joined. But I was just like, man, I don't know how I feel about arresting like my own countrymen, you know, and I'm not saying like everybody's innocent or whatever. It's just like, I mean, because we all know there's just bad people on the streets that need to be put away or put down. And I don't know. I felt like that responsibility. I didn't want to take that on, but my hat's off to those who do.
I'll use that as a jump off then. So where's hometown? Where'd you grow up? What kind of shaped your life? I know you mentioned your dad was a state trooper for 25 years.
Yep, Maryland State Police. I grew up in Sykesville and lived there pretty much my whole life until I joined the military. Just a small town, probably about 40 minutes outside of Baltimore City. It's like country and a lot of farms and stuff. And yeah, I mean, I was just back there a couple weeks ago visiting friends and family and stuff, and it's cool. I mean, it's different every time I go back. I feel like it gets more and more like populated, gentrified, and, you know, kind of expands a little bit. But growing up, man, like, you had to literally take a car to get anywhere. Like, it's not like you could just walk out your door and go to a coffee shop or anything like that. Like, I mean, we were miles from places, so it got got cabin fever from time to time. I mean, back then it's like your imagination was how you got through, you know, like there's no internet, there's no scrolling, there's no social media, you know. I didn't have like video games or anything growing up, you know. It was just my brother, my sister, and I, so we kind of just, you know, did our thing, figured it out, fought it out, played it out, you know.
Where do you fall in the pecking order?
I'm the first, you know, and then younger brother, younger sister.
Were you a good kid?
You know, I feel like I'm a good person, but I do
troublemaker.
Yeah. You know, you know, we all kind of try to find out where that line is, and then, you know, sometimes we cross it. And I feel like, you know, in elementary school, you know, middle school, I was a pretty good kid. And then I got into high school. my parents split, and then I was kind of used that because my parents, like my dad, being a cop and everything, he was strict. My mom was strict, and again, like we didn't have like a whole lot of like freedoms. Excuse me. We didn't have a whole lot of freedoms growing up. So as soon as my parents split and I was in high school, and now I'm like, I'm the furthest along I've been, outside of college, like high school is like, it's as high as you go. And, I just kind of used that to do what I wanted, use the divorce, I bounced around to a couple different high schools, and, I was able to just kind of swindle my way into different situations, I had fun. I mean, I never did anything like too crazy. It wasn't like stealing cars or anything like that, but like, just being a kid, just being rambunctious.
What about sports?
Wrestling, football, lacrosse, those are my top three. I didn't get into lacrosse until like a little bit later, like closer to like freshman year of high school, but that was my favorite. That and wrestling, wrestling's cool because it's like, it was one-on-one and just like, your will against the other person's. And, I lost a lot, which frustrated me. And it's funny, like if I had the mindset that I have now back when I wrestled, in my younger years, I feel like I would have been a lot better, but instead of using my losses to get better, it's almost like I just got down on myself and I got frustrated. I was like, man, like, I don't know, just, knowing now that I can switch the mindset and just use the losses as a learning tool. That's why I like, getting back into jujitsu and stuff like that. It's like, okay, like I don't care if I get tapped or, choked or whatever, because it's like, hey, I'm still learning. Like I'm okay with losing, like I've lost enough in my life that it's not like just because you lose, you're not a loser, you either win or you learn, but I wish I had the mentality that I have now back then for wrestling is what I'm getting at. But lacrosse was cool too. I just like rolling around, just kind of being a goon. It's kind of like hockey, but not on ice,
right.
And just like whacking people with a stick and, charging downfield and trying to score. So that was cool. And then football's football, just gridiron gang, just, hard knock stuff, which is always fun.
Now, we've already mentioned the Navy. Anybody else in your family, dad, grandparents, anything like that serve?
Yeah. So my dad's dad, my grandfather, he was a Marine. Yeah.
Where did as you were coming to the end of high school, what was your plan for adulthood? Were you already thinking the military?
So I was thinking military and specifically Navy SEALs, like when I was a kid. And, I'm talking like as far back as I can remember, it's like that line in Goodfellas, like as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a Navy SEAL, and I didn't even know what they were. I just like, I thought the name was cool, and I just knew that they did some sort of like ninja shit, and then when I found out the acronym, I'm like, what? It's like, we'll get you from anywhere. Like, that's pretty sweet. So, being a kid, always wanted to do that. Not really knowing what it was. I got a gun and I'm going after bad guys. Right. And then I kind of like once my parents got divorced and I kind of like was on my own essentially. Cause I was just drifting around to different friends' houses and stuff. And then I just kind of lost my way. And, all I cared about was just partying, and
was this basically your entire senior year of high school?
Sophomore, junior, senior.
So a couple of years.
Yeah. And then it got into, it was fun for, the first year was a lot of fun partying and chasing girls or whatever and learning the ways. And then, junior year, you're like, all right, man, like, everybody's still going to school and stuff. And I just stopped kind of going to school. I mean, I barely graduated high school. But then, it's like I wanted to keep the party going, but then all my other friends are like, all right, well, we're going to go party at college, you know, and we're going to continue our education. And that kind of left me like, cause I went to like one semester of college. I'm like, man, this is not, I'm not interested, you know, and none of this is what I want to do. I don't want to like go get a degree and be behind a desk somewhere, or like, I don't even know what I want to do. And it wasn't until, you know, I had jobs and stuff, you know, work construction, and I was working at a Hollywood video store, and
any reason why not go straight into the Navy, like, or the military?
Well, I just kind of forgot about it.
Oh,
you know, I was just kind of like when I was saying like I lost my way, like I completely like just like I was like, you know, whatever. Like I'm not concerned about my future anymore. I just want to like party, and I was in a Hollywood video. I'll never forget it. And I was like, you know, putting DVDs back in their cases or whatever. And this guy that I worked with, he came into the store and he put in his 2 weeks. And I'm like, what's up, man? Like, what are you doing? Where you got another job? Or are you just over it? He's like, man, he's like, I enlisted in the Army. It's like, the Army? Really? I was like, why the Army? Like, why not like the Marine Corps or something, you know? Just trying to see where he was at. And he's like, yeah, he's like, I just something I wanted to do. It's, you know, I shove off in a month, and yeah, that's that. And I just kind of was like, like, you know, if I was going to join, then I would go as hard as I could, you know? I mean, if he's going to go Army, you should try it for, you know, the Delta Force or something like that, you know, or go Marine Corps and go Force Recon or SEALs. And then I got to thinking, I was like, oh yeah, SEALs. I remember seeing him walk past the window where I was standing, like putting these DVDs back in their cases. And like the look he had on his face was just like so stoic. And I'm like, man, here I am like judging this guy because he went into the Army instead of, you know, the Marine Corps or whatever else because of my own like ignorance. And I'm like, what am I doing? You know? And that's like what reignited that flame, because I'm like, this guy's going to go serve his country in some way, shape, or form, which is way more than what I'm doing here. And that's what like kickstarted it back up. And I was like, all right. And like, I kind of found my purpose again, and off I went.
You mentioned that when your mom and dad divorced, you kind of were on your own, so to speak, and making your own way. As far as your relationship with either of them, did it deteriorate on both sides, or did you stay close to one or the other?
It deteriorated on both sides. You know, it wasn't bad at first, but then when I started getting into trouble that they found out about, then it started to affect the relationship. And, you know, it's, you know, it's tough on, you know, a parent when they find out that, you know, their kid is just a deadbeat and not doing anything with their life. And you know, even though I had a job and I was working, it's not like I was just like sitting at home like playing video games. It's like, but like, what are you actually doing? You know, like, what are you striving for? And I feel like it, you know, now being older and having kids of my own, it's like I would feel like it's more like a frustration on the parents' part, being like, hey, you know, like, you know, worried for your kid, like you've got no future, you're not doing anything with your life.
Did you know anybody else? The guy you worked with at the video store went towards the Army. You mentioned wanting to be a SEAL. Any of your other close friends or anybody go towards the military?
Nope. None of them. And I think that's kind of like part of like losing my way was I was hanging out, and I love my friends. Like I'm still, you know, I got to see them when I went home, but none of them had any desire to do any of that stuff, you know? And even when I brought it up, like, really? Like, that's what you want to do? Like almost trying to talk me out of it. I was like, no, man, this is what I want to do. All right. Good luck.
How was your recruiter experience walking in saying you wanted to be a SEAL?
Oh my God, those guys are dorks. They were just nerds. I mean, I'm sure they loved me because they didn't have to like try to persuade me to join. But, you know, I walked in and I was like, hey, I want to be a SEAL. The guy's like, looks at me funny. He's like, well, how many push-ups can you do? I don't know. Let's see. And he's like, well, drop down and let's see. It cranked out like 90 push-ups in a minute. And, but that was about all I could do as far as the PST stuff was concerned. Like my running was not great. My swimming was awful, and sit-ups I could do, pull-ups I could do, but like, yeah, I mean, they were on my ass too, though, because I had failed my ASVAB the first time I took it, or I didn't score high enough to get a SEAL contract. And I could only take it one more time. And if I failed again, then I wasn't qualified to join and get a SEAL contract. So I was like, so I took, I don't know, like 5-6 months of just like studying and training before I took the ASVAB again. Cause I'm like, I don't want to blow this. But then they were just like, kept hounding me. And it's like, look, guys, like I'll get there when I get there, but just take it easy. I think they just wanted the number or whatever, like, hey, we got a guy and, he's signed up and all that. But yeah, they weren't.
How many times did you have to take the PST to pass it?
I passed the PST. I failed it the first time because my swimming, like I grew up swimming, but not like not swimming. I swam in the ocean or the pool or whatever. And like, but there's, doing the combat side stroke and in a pool or even in the ocean, is way different than just, playing around in the pool during the summertime, like I know how to swim, but I didn't know how to like be, like streamlined in the water. So I was, I was so smoked, cause the swim is the first thing you do, for the PST. And I was so I barely passed it. But I was so gassed from swimming that, I ended up failing my run at the end, which I'm a better runner than I am swimmer, even to this day. But I was so smoked that I just failed my run. And then after that, I learned how to do the combat side stroke, and I was fine. I mean, I didn't fail it again after that, but PST is not, it has nothing to do with like SEAL training or, operational training or anything like that. It's just like, hey, let's see if you can do this and let's get this over with and let's get on to the next level.
So you went into the Navy when?
2006.
And not that anybody ever really talks about Navy boot camp being difficult, but how was that process for you? Being somebody who had kind of bucked the system and kind of gone against the rules.
It was a joke. I mean, it just felt like a time suck, like the first like couple days you're just, in this like, you feel like you're on a conveyor belt and you're just moving down the line, getting your clothes and getting your socks and getting your boots. And then like, learning how to fold your clothes and your socks and blouse your boots and tie your boots. It's like, oh my God. I mean, it's almost like they just are trying to program you to be these little like, agents. And, I mean, it drug on too. Like it's 3 months, I think, or 8 to 12 weeks, something like that. So yeah, I joined in October, November. Yeah. So I think like 2.5 months. I graduated boot camp at the end of 2006. I joined in October. And, I mean, if anything, I felt like I was losing like my edge, they had a program where, the guys that had contracts to go into buds, we would go work with dive motivators in the morning. So we'd get up, 2-3 hours earlier than everybody else, get dressed, march across the street, train for like an hour and a half, swimming, push-ups, whatever PT they put us through, come back and then start the day with everybody else. But it was not enough. Like I would, at the end of the night, after everybody racked out, I'd do 500 push-ups and 500 sit-ups, and I would just break it up. I'd do 25 until I hit 500 of each. And, just to get something else in, and then, one time I got bitched out by whoever the little watch standard guy was. It was like a rotation of people, doing watch. You got to get back in your rack. I'm like, dude.
Were you the only one in your class that was going to be going to buds?
No, I think there was like probably like 5 or 6 of us, which I think out of those 5 or 6, like 2 made it. And I wasn't one of those 6. I wasn't one of those 2. But eventually.
Oh yeah, we'll eventually get there. You're one of the I'll call them the unique individuals who wanted to go through buds multiple times. I say that jokingly.
Yeah, it's a good time.
So, as far as your research and your knowledge of what you were heading into for SEAL training, did you get much or did you know much going into it?
I just knew, so I watched the 234 documentary. I was like, oh, that looks like it sucks, but it's doable. And I to this day, I still think it's a cool documentary as far as like the narration and everything goes. And especially back then when there was no eyeball on SEAL training or anything like that, it was like, wow, this is like new and kind of cool. And then I read Dick Couch's book. I forget the name of it now. But it was all about buds. And then the finishing school was the book after that. It was all about SQT. So that was those two books, and then the documentary is pretty much all I knew about it. And I joined in 2006, so the war had already been going on for 5 years, and I didn't really know much about what SEALs were even doing. I just knew men were fighting, and I wanted to get into the fight, and I want to do it as a SEAL. I mean, I remember seeing pictures of platoons in Iraq with like skeleton masks on and stuff like that, and holding up pirate flags, and damn, like that's sick. I want to be one of those dudes.
Did you know going in that the process before you would even deploy would be multiple years?
I mean, I knew that if I was lucky enough and good enough, I could get pinned in a year after graduating boot camp. Buds is 6 months, SQT 6 months. And then I was like, hey, get to a platoon, do another year. So I was like, okay, 2 years to get downrange if I'm lucky and I pass everything. But I did not expect what happened next.
Between graduating boot camp and checking in straight away, or did you have a little downtime?
Nah, that was the other thing is I got put in like a holding pattern. Like a few of us, we were just, because we were so over boot camp that's like, let's just get out to California. Let's, get back into running, swimming, PT shape for buds. And then our orders just never came. It took like another 2 months to get my orders. And I'm like, or maybe like a month and a half. I classed up, I believe it was February 2007. And, just so like another month and a half of just sitting around at Great Lakes, just like under the thumb of Big Navy and, being a green, Navy recruit, sailor. And it's like, couldn't really get the stride I wanted to just kind of train and, just you're so far removed at that point, it's like, I just want to get to California. I want to see this, I want to see the grinder. I want to see the beach. I want to see the logs. I want to see the boats. So that was pretty frustrating, but it went quicker than I was expecting. The fact that I didn't know when my orders were going to come, like that was the worst part. Cause it's like, you just don't know when this is going to pop. And some guys that we were talking to, they're like, yeah, I've been here 6 months. I'm like, you've been here 6 months with no orders? Like, that's crazy. So I just not knowing that.
And you're beyond the era where you had to graduate boot camp, go to A school, and then off to buds, correct?
Yeah. So I had a contract where, as long as I could go to buds straight out of boot camp. And then it was like a $40,000 bonus where if I passed the PST with certain numbers, they'd give me 40 G's, which I was like, that's what I want. I didn't pass. I mean, I passed it, but I didn't hit those numbers. I passed my PST, but I think I failed the pull-ups. Like, I had to get like 15 or 20, and I got like 12. Still eats at me.
Started out your first class. You didn't make it to Hell Week, right?
First class, I made it to the Friday before Hell Week. So classed up, did the PTRR piece, just, getting cleared medically. Then I did the indoc piece, which is like 3 weeks of just a light touch of what you're going to get. And then I did the first 3 weeks of buds. Week 4 is Hell Week, but I had failed my swim times, my ocean swims. And so that Friday before Hell Week, I went to a board with a few other guys who had failed, and they recommended when you go to a board, you're in your starch uniform, your polished boots, everything's just tight, and you're at attention in front of a board of instructors, everybody from like first class all the way up to master chief, and they pretty much, beat you up about how much you suck and, tell you shouldn't be here and all this, and, really kind of see if you'll crack and see what you're made of. And then they either recommend roll or drop. And back then it was like you were given one performance roll and one medical roll. And that was like if they signed off on it, like you could be dropped for anything. Like, if I had failed like all my swims, all my runs, all my obstacle courses, and I just look like, and I've got bad peer reviews and I'm just not pulling my weight, they could just drop me. Or they could just drop me because whatever reason, but it was kind of like an unsaid thing where it's like you get one performance roll. And then if you fail something again, you're done. You're dropped from training. So I blew my first silver bullet like instantly. And so I didn't even get to go into Hell Week, but I did those first 3 weeks, and that was that was a wake up call for sure.
In that first 3 weeks, or technically you're actually at 6 weeks in, right?
Yeah.
Was there time for you on your own to try to get better at swimming?
After I got rolled?
No, in that first.
No. I mean, in doc a little bit, you had you would go to the combat training tank, the CTT, and you'd get in and you'd swim and, do that for like an hour, just swim back and forth. But you're in this pool with, 200 other guys or 300 other guys. And you're just like kind of, it's like one guy gets in and starts swimming, and then 2 seconds later, the next guy gets in. And then it goes like that in, 10 lanes.
You're sharing a square inch of space.
Yeah. And so you can't really just like stride it out. You're just kind of like, you're like salmon swimming upriver, so you're not really training. You're just kind of just in there, just struggling.
So they rolled you back, but you just basically restart that program again.
Pretty much. Yeah. So I think I had like maybe like 2 or 3 weeks to train and try to work on my swimming and get better at it. And before I class back up with the next class. And I did enough to be able to pass, but I was still like, it took everything I had just to get that 85-minute 2 mile ocean swim time. I was like 84, 49 or whatever, 84:55. I was just like, it was looking grim, but I managed to pass. I went through Hell Week with 265 was my second class that I rolled into. And then from there, like finished out first phase. And by this point I had done like, back to back first phase plus a Hell Week. And, I was pretty broken. And what they had told me was that the cartilage in between my discs in my neck was just like grinded down just from carrying a boat on my head. So because I couldn't turn my head left or right. And I was like Batman, just like, and they did like x-rays and everything. They're like, yeah, it's just like bone on bone here. And so they rolled me medically from 265 to 266, and it gave me some time to heal up a little bit. But I mean, I still have that pain to this day. Like, I mean, it sucks. It is what it is, but that's where I got my medical role. And then so from there I classed up with 266. So I was 264, rolled before Hell Week. 265, made it through Hell Week, got to second phase, and then 266 I classed up with them, second phase, new group of dudes. I knew a couple of them, but pretty much a fresh class to me.
Real quick, stupid question.
What's up?
Your neck's all jacked up, so they medically roll you. What are you able to do to kind of get it to at least where you could turn your head?
I mean, rest and recover. There was really no real solution to it. Here, take some ibuprofen. I mean, they had me doing like some sort of like, I almost had like an ace wrap type thing, like a stretchy band that I would wrap around my head and just kind of like work my neck a little bit and just try to like ease into, getting some sort of rotation or some sort of flexibility or something. But I mean, the damage is done,
In that couple week period, are you on your own, or are they telling you, hey, go see this doctor on these days? And
yeah.
Okay.
I'm going and I'm checking in with medical and stuff like that. But I mean, it's like you go do that in the morning and then you're, left to, rest and recover on your own after that. And then there was still like some tasks I had to do because at this point I'm a brown shirt, which, means I made it through Hell Week. So it's like as a brown shirt rollback, like I had to go train and I still had to go, every day I had to go to the pool and work with other instructors that were, designated rollback instructors and do whatever PT. I mean, you're still getting treated like a bud student.
Right.
But yeah, it was more or less trying to recover and get back to as close to 100% as you can before you get back out there.
Your headspace at this point with your neck jacked up, are any doubts creeping in? Like, man, am I going to be able to get through this?
Not not as far as the injuries went. My only concern was my swims, and so I was always, trying to swim and work on my swimming and, just cause I just sucked at it, which is like, it's hilarious. It's like you want to be a Navy SEAL, but you can't swim. Like, what's wrong with you? But as far as the injuries, man, it's like, I mean, at this point I've lived with pain for so long that it's like, I just kind of ignore it. It's like, I know it's there, but it doesn't really, affect I still have to do what I have to do. There's still a job to do, whether you're hurt or not, get it done. So as far as that goes, it's like that never worried me as far as getting through training.
And so the next class that you pick up with, you basically just slide in as soon as they're done with Hell Week.
Pretty much. Yeah. Well, not Hell Week. When they get done with first phase.
Oh, okay.
Because I made it all the way through first phase with 265. That was
okay.
my second class. If I had gotten rolled after Hell Week, like the next week or whatever, then I would have picked up with them. But they had to catch up to where I was.
Got it.
And I got right to the beginning of second phase. I think I was in the first week when I got rolled because I just couldn't move my neck. I couldn't turn my head. So they're like, all right, that qualifies you for a roll, I guess. So by the time 266 got to second phase, I was, I mean, I wouldn't say I was ready because it was still messed up, but it was like, you're ready or not.
You were as good as you were going to be.
You're in. Yeah. You're in the game now. So classed up with them and, yeah, man, I think because when I looked at SEAL training, and again, like back then, not having a lot of information, whatever, I guess I always just thought of Hell Week as being the thing that, if you can make it through Hell Week, you can make it through anything. That was kind of my attitude. It's like, okay, this is where, the class gets chopped. It's like first 3 weeks of Hell Week or first 3 weeks before Hell Week. I mean, that you take big hits, like massive numbers of people quit. And then half the class will quit. Whatever's left after those first 3 weeks, half that number is going to quit in Hell Week. And then you don't hear about anybody quitting or really getting dropped from training after Hell Week, because you can, they've done their worst, or so you think. And so I'm like, okay, I made it through Hell Week. I can make it through the rest of this training. But that was my mistake, was like underestimating like what was coming next. Because I just thought, hey, I just did all this. I'm sure I can do the rest, no problem. And that was not the case, because second phase of Bud's training is the water phase, and we've already established that I suck at swimming, right? So now I'm underwater, having to deal with problems, and I would say, like, it starts out easy.
Your body is built for more energy, more focus, more strength. But if you're feeling sluggish, unmotivated, or mentally drained, it's time to make a change. At Human Performance TRT, science meets convenience. Their hormone replacement therapy, weight loss programs, and mental health solutions are all designed to help you feel and perform at your best without ever leaving home. They offer medical-grade hormone optimization, weight loss support with personalized health coaching, and ketamine therapy for depression, anxiety, and trauma, all guided by qualified mental health professionals. HPTRT is veteran and first responder owned, and they make it simple to optimize your health. There's no locked-in contracts, and if you're already on a hormone program, switching is easy. There's no extra test if your blood work is under 6 months old. Ready to take back your edge? Go to hptrt.com and use the promo code TDP for 30% off. That's hptrt.com and use the promo code TDP for 30% off your entire program. Stop waiting. Your peak performance starts now.
First phase, you have Hell Week. Second phase, you have Pool Week. And it starts out pretty simple, pretty easy. It's like, hey, go in the water with your scuba gear on, go down to the bottom, do your procedures, and then take your gear off, put it back on, come up to the surface. But then they start ramping it up. Then you have to do it at night. And then you have to do, so they tape your mask up. And then you have to do it with a buddy, and you share a regulator, and it's just slowly starts creeping up, and it's all working up to this crescendo, which is pool comp, and that's at the end of the week. And essentially it's like a 20-minute test. You go in the water, and you simulate getting hit by waves and drowning or being drowned and having to get your air back on, and then there's a procedure, there's steps you have to take, and you have to do them in the proper order, and you have to do them precisely, or you fail. And it's not like, hey, you get like a pass because you skip something once. It's like you skip something once, like you fail, So you in the water, you're crawling on the pool deck, you got your weight belt on, you got your tanks on, you got your mask on, and then you get slammed by an instructor or two or three, and they come down, they rip your mask off, turn your air off, toss you around, take your weight belt off. It's supposed to simulate getting rocked by a wave in the surf. And then when they back off you, now you're doing all this on the breath hold because they ripped your regulator out. So now you got to get all your gear on and get your air. Well, first thing you got to do is get your air. And once you get your air, then you can start, putting your gear back together, buckling up and putting your weight belt back on and all that stuff. And typically,
from what I've been told, if I remember correctly, once you get your air back on, there's also a specific order that you're supposed to put equipment back on.
Right.
It's not just get your equipment back on.
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You have to do it precisely. Like you have to, you have to buckle your straps, and like you have to actually trace where your, straps start with your tanks, down to where your chest strap is. You have to be very deliberate about like what you're doing so that there's no confusion, and it's all done in a specific order. And again, if you skip it, like that's it. They tap you on the head and tell you to come up, like you're done, you failed. And they'll explain to you why you failed, and that's that. But yeah. And typically the test is about 20 minutes or so. roughly. And you get 4 chances at each test. So for this one, you get 2 on Friday. And if you fail both, then you get 2 more on Monday. And I failed the 2 on Friday, and that was just a long weekend of brooding and like not being in the right headspace. Cause I'm like, they give you an opportunity to train outside of the test, but the training is they have 2 tanks that are made of wood, and they've got a regulator on them. They got straps. They've got a weight belt you can put on, and you do it on the grinder, the second phase grinder. Lay out like a wrestling mat, and so you don't bang up your knees, and then you can go there and you can train with them as long as you want to. And at the time, I'm thinking like, I'm not in the water. Like, how is this helping me? Like, I know what my procedures are, but like, I'm not in the water. I'm not holding my breath. Like, so I didn't do anything, which was the wrong move to make. Cause instead I just thought about how fucked I am on Monday, which is, I mean, looking back on it, it's like why I did that. I still don't know, like why I just sat there and just like thought about like, man, I got 2 more chances and I don't know about this. And, I mean, it's wrong attitude, and I failed.
But that's half the stress that's naturally built into anything like that, is the stress of, oh shit, I failed it. Now I've only got X number of times to pass it. So it's not like you're just like, oh, okay, I'm not making light of it. Right. I can see how it can really weigh you down, of that stress of, oh shit, I've got to do this on Monday. And I see where you're coming from. Okay, you want me to replicate doing this, but I can't do it in the water. Right. So it's not going to be exactly the same.
Right. But I mean, even like, but even doing that would have been better than just what I did, Right. But I just, I was young, I was immature. I was just kind of beat myself down. And ultimately, like, that proved, I like, either way, I proved myself right. It's like, I can't do this. And it's like, okay, yeah, you can't do this, and you failed it. And now you can't be a SEAL. It's like, you can't pass the training. So it's like, it was all just attitude, and I had just a feeling sorry for myself attitude. And, I failed on Monday, and that was that, man. Like, and I think I also knew, like, I have no more chances here. I've had my medical role. I've had my performance role. Like, if I fail, I'm done. And, I just I was focusing on the wrong things, instead of being out there on the grinder, training my ass off, even as silly as I thought it may be, like, at least it would have given me some chance, instead of a better chance than sitting there feeling sorry for myself. Anyway, that's the most I've ever talked about being a bitch about that. And I hate hearing it come out of my mouth, but that's what it was.
Hey, that's the advantage of maturity, man. It's easy to look back and identify all the shit we did wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, it was for the best, it's like, because after that, I ended up going to Guantanamo Bay. I had my like boo-hoo moment after I got dropped. And, at that point in time, it was just like everything was just kind of blurry, and just, I had no direction, no focus. And I had to just kind of figure out like what I'm going to do. And it's like, all right, well, what do I want to do? It's like, I still want to do this. If there's any chance at all that I can get back here, like, I'll take it. And so I went to the recruiter, and I talked to the recruiter, and he's like, yeah, we've got a billet for you if you want to take it. It's 1 year.
Now, do you go back home to Maryland?
No, you were neat. You're still in the Navy. I still have an obligation. I'm 8 months into my 4-year commitment to the Navy. So now that I'm not on track to be a SEAL anymore, now I'm needs of the Navy. Now they're like, hey, pick something, and that's where you're going. It's like, The saying is like, choose your rate, choose your fate. I wasn't choosing a rate at this point. I was just choosing orders to go somewhere. And I talked to the guy. I'm like, what's the quickest way back to training? He's like, we got this billet. You go to Guantanamo Bay, you do 1 year there. It's a 1 year billet. And then you can put in your orders while you're down there, and you can come back and go to Buds if they take you. Big if. I was like, all right, done. Like, a year's not that long, depending on how you look at it. It could be forever. It could go by like that. So myself and a few other guys that I became pretty good friends with, actually, there was 2 other guys in my class that failed pool comp as well. And so all 3 of us took the orders to Gitmo, and then a few other guys that had either quit or got dropped for something else, they took those orders too. And so I got dropped August 31st, 2007. And then by the end of that year, I was in Mississippi, because at this point, needs of the Navy. Now I'm working with all big Navy sailors. And so they brought in everybody that took this contract to go to Guantanamo Bay from all over the Navy, and they staged us in Gulfport, Mississippi. And we were, once everybody got there and we did like training, we went up to Washington State to an Army base for like a month or so and did some training there, just simulated like camp training stuff. And then
this is basically all to prepare you to run a jail or run a prison?
Pretty much, yeah. And then from there, they put us on a plane and down to Guantanamo. I got there in January of 2008. And I was there until I was there 19 months. I didn't get back to California until end of November, beginning of December. Actually, I think it was like December 5th. If my memory serves me, it was like right around the beginning of December of 2009. And so that 1 year billet turned out to be 19 months, because when I got down there, myself and everybody else that wanted to go back to Buds, we start knocking on doors, asking questions. Who do I need to talk to? Like career counselors, dive motivators. Who is it that I have to talk to get back to training? And they, all these regular fleet sailors, especially like the chiefs and the senior chiefs and the master chiefs, they're all like, pump the brakes. Like, you just got here, you've got an obligation, and nobody says you're going anywhere, and it was like, like this is going to be a little bit more difficult than I thought. Because then they wouldn't let us just go back to Buds. They're like, you have to strike a rate before you go back to Buds. And usually when somebody like tells me something like that, like you have to do something, I'm like, maybe there's another way. And for the most part, you can usually find another way around it, or at least I do. But not with this. Not with this. It's like I tried everything I could to go back to Buds as like an undesignated sailor, and nobody was having it. So I was like, okay, now choose your rate, choose your fate. It was like aviation ordnance, AO, or gunner's mate, GM. And I'm like, I don't know which is the better rate to pick. Like, which one is going to get me back to Buds like quicker? Like, because now it's like, once you pick the rate, it's like, now you belong to that rate. And it's like, hey, well, we might need you over here. It's like, well, which one of these two is going to release me to go back to training? So I went with GM, and pretty much everybody, all my buddies that took the GM rate got to go back to Buds. Everybody that went AO had to go out to the fleet and go on a ship for at least 6 months. And I was like dodged a bullet on that one, man. But like just getting that was just like a tiny piece of it, like, cause like Guantanamo, it was like, it was just like nothing I'd ever been a part of, because it's like I'm part of Big Navy now, so I'm around just a bunch of sailors, and they're around a bunch of, they call us Buds duds, quitters or drops, you're a dud. Not a SEAL, you're a dud. Right. So now you got to like live with that. And then, I have guys I still talk to from Gitmo and girls that are like, were my friends down there and cool people. And were, always like rooting for us and stuff like that, and saw what we had to put up with from the chain of command and from, all these motherfuckers that were trying to screw us on our orders, because that's really what they were doing. That's why they put us on the worst pods at the worst camps with the worst detainees, because they wanted us to slip up and they wanted us to like do something that would get us in trouble so that they could just snatch our orders or not sign off on them. So
on the flip side, though, other than peers, people that you were working with from chain of command, did you get positive experiences with anybody in the chain of command that was like,
hell no. Everybody in our chain of command, like, they hated us because they knew, like, I mean, I got pulled into the office one time for some like BS thing that happened on a pod. It was like, it didn't even make sense. It was something that had to do with like water bottles or something, like squeezing a water bottle. Just like, I can't even remember. It was so like ridiculous. But they were just trying to like poke at us and trying to, find like triggers. And I'll never forget this senior chief, she was like, she was just a crusty, like BM senior chief, like boatswain's mate, like just, and she's like, you think you're fucking special, don't you? And in my mind, I'm thinking like back to the grinder, and above the grinder, there's a sign that says, be someone special. And in my mind, I'm like, look, like, why are you pressing me? It's like, you're getting in my face saying you think you're someone special. It's like, look, man, like, I'm just trying to do like my thing here. And I just like, leave me alone. All I want to do is just like train, do my job, eat, sleep, repeat, and it's like, and get back to buds. And then they, they'd all talk, because like we clicked up, like all the buds guys, we clicked up and, we trained together, we ran, we swam, we PT'd, we dealt with the bullshit with all these, detainees and with our chain of command. And, it was just always something. There was no, nobody was trying to help us out, and so I had to backdoor people, and, I got chewed out for that, which I'm like, it comes to a point where it's like, I'm not scared of an ass chewing, because it's like, I am here to get back to buds, I'm just fulfilling a duty here, and people were like, they're not pushing my orders up, they're not setting the appointments for me that I need in order to get approved to go back to buds, or they're trying to pull me away from my appointments and schedule something else for me. I mean, it was just like, dude, like, where is this like one team, one fight mentality here? Like, who cares like what I want to do? Like, why do you care so much about what I'm doing? And so it got old, and it got to a point where it's like, I just didn't care who I pissed off, but then I had to really watch myself, because they would try to grab me on anything, any minor thing that I would slip up on, they would just like try to hammer me for and use it as like a tool to keep me from going to training or whatever. And so I just really had to be careful and watch my step. But
at this point in time, are you able to connect with anybody, and I'm going to use the word mentor, who kind of was like, hey, here's, mind your P's and Q's, somebody kind of helping you through this process, and not, because I would imagine it just gets to a point where you just get so frustrated where every time you turn around, it's just like, screw this.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, so I had a guy who's a SEAL that I knew, who was kind of, he was kind of guiding me, but there's really not much he could do, because it's all about the paperwork.
Right.
It's all about getting that paperwork pushed up. And when, you don't have people signing off on your paperwork, you can't get it like pushed up. Or it's like, hey, look, we got a dive motivator. They're coming down this one weekend on this 1 month. Make sure you're available for it. And it's like, okay, like I've got to either put in some sort of like leave or some sort of like I got to take off work somehow, some way so that I can go do this. And I can't tell anybody that I'm doing it, because if they find out about it, they'll try to pull me back into work or pull me, give me some mandatory training I got to do or something just to keep me from going. I mean, it was crazy. Like the amount of like just hate and resistance I got from people. It's like, dude, like, why does my career and what I want to do with it matter so much to you? Because they tell you in the beginning of, your time in the Navy, it's like, no one's going to care about your career more than you do. It's like, yeah, there seems to be a lot of people that care about my career more than I do, because they're trying to prevent me from doing what I want to do.
I'm sure the logical answer is envy and jealousy.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because a lot of people, like when you say that that's what it is, they're quick to be like, no, that's not it. It's, you're just an asshole. It's like, okay, man, like whatever. Like,
but on the flip side, though, just playing a little bit of devil's advocate, I would imagine there's a lot of guys who went down, didn't make it. They carried a grudge, even though maybe in their mind they're like, I want to get back, but they were just a shitbag while they were down there.
Oh yeah, dude. There was a guy. I mean, he was a legit like stud, and he quit. And when he went down to Gitmo, and he put the recruit or the career counselor, this chief, this Navy chick, through so much hell to get orders to go back to Buds, and then he didn't even go. He made her life a living hell because he just wanted to go back to Buds so bad, and then he didn't even go. So he like just kind of ruined it for everybody, because after that, and he was down there before us. And so after she had to deal with him, and we all came down to, hey,
her tolerance for you guys was zero,
like none. She like, I'll never forget. Like, I'll never say these people's names out loud. Definitely not on a podcast. Like, they know who they are. I know who they are, and that's that. But it's like, and that whole jealousy thing. It's like, that's a thing, and. I mean, but that's your thing, man. If you got a problem, that's your problem. I'm sure some of these females have been, screwed over by team guys. I'm sure some of these dudes wanted to be team guys, and, they quit. They couldn't really, face themselves in the mirror, or, tell their dads they quit, or whatever the case may be. But it's like, then that all turns and they put it on you, they try to like project onto you, like, whatever it is. It's like, dude, like, just leave me be, but I'll never forget, like my mentor, he's just like, look, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep your head down, keep your nose clean, do your job, keep training. We're going to get, when the paperwork gets in the system, or when it starts coming this way, I'll let you know and we'll expedite it. I was like, all right, cool. So I was able to kind of, work with somebody to fast track it a little bit. But I mean, still 7 months past when I was expecting to go back. But look, I mean, for as much shit as I'm talking about Gitmo and how much hell it was, like, it was like, I matured a lot while I was down there. I got to see my enemy like face to face every day and build that resilience, build my hatred, which, hate keeps me going, and train. And I got to train in some of the best facilities. We had trails we could run. We had pools we could swim in. I mean, I was in that pool, 4:00 in the morning, just for like 2 hours before I had to go to work, and then I go to work for, I think it was like 12 hours. I think we had like 12-hour shifts. And then I'd get off and I'd go to the gym. I'd run to the gym. I'd do a workout for another 2 hours, and then I'd run back to my dorm or my room, and I would just like wash up and get ready to do it again the next day. Like, that's how, especially those last like 4 or 5 months, that's like all I was doing. It's like, wasn't drinking, wasn't putting myself in any situations where I could get hemmed up. And then I got my orders, man, and I pinned them to my corkboard in my room. And I'm like, that is my trident right there. It's like, that is all I needed, was just just somebody say, yes, you can go back. And we joked that like, it'd be harder to get, it's going to be harder to get back to buds than it would be to go through buds. I mean, there were times where it's just like, man, like you just cannot get anybody to like help you out around here. But again, it definitely, I needed it, you know, and at the time, you know, you can't really see the big picture, you know, because you're so caught up in like whatever, you know, shit world you're in, you know, and it's an attitude thing too, you know? So it's like, I needed that time to mature, to, you know, switch my attitude up and just be like, hey, you know what, man, like you're here now, you're training, you know what you want to do. And then, like I said, when I got those orders, man, it was like, that's it. So
December 2007, you were back in Coronado?
2009.
2009,
yeah.
My mistake.
Yeah. So I got dropped August 31st, 2007, and I got back to buds December 2009. I think it was December 5th. And then
any reservations mentally as far as just getting through that again?
Nope. All I thought about was pool comp. Like that was like my main thing. It's like I'd already done 2 first phases, 1 hell week. I know it sucks, you know, but I knew how to train for it too, you know? Like the workouts that I did were all geared towards what I knew was coming. And, you know, it's funny too, like they say, you know, don't read comments and stuff on like, you know, your posts or whatever. But sometimes I like to go and check and see what kind of shit people are talking. And they're like, oh yeah, well, when you know what's coming, it's going to be easier. It's like, dude, a kick in the nuts is a kick in the nuts. You know what I'm saying? Like
that argument of knowing what's coming, you listen to enough people. There's so much information available now.
Yeah.
It's not like the numbers of people that are getting through buds are going through the roof.
No, it's still, it's like that water is still cold. That boat still hurts your freaking neck. You know, and I'm going back in like with injuries that I sustained from training the first time, you know? So it's like those logs are still heavy, you know, that sand still, you know, gets and cracks on your body that, you know, chafe you up and burn your skin. You know, you're still swimming in like red tide and getting sick. And I mean, it still sucks. Like, make no mistake about it. Like, but it is what it is. And it's like, you know, how bad do you want it? And now I kind of have a theory too. It's like, you know, everybody hits a wall or hits a point where they, you know, people say that they don't think about quitting. Like I never thought about quitting when I was like in the training, you know? Actually I'll save that because I did think about quitting, but I was removed from the training at the time. But so yeah, I got back to buds December 2009, classed up in January.
Nice and warm,
bro. Class 281. That was the coldest hell week, man. Like, I mean, so did Indoc, did first phase. Still sucked, you know. It was all pretty much the same as far as like the training went and the schedule, you know. Like I knew like, hey, this inspection is a mock inspection, and they're gonna turn this into a freaking beatdown. And sure enough, but it was cool because I was buddies with my LPO at the time, and I still am. But like I would tell him like, yo, this is what's coming next. Like, be ready for it. And he'd be like, all right, cool. And he would be able to kind of, you know, work the class into a position to where we're not caught with like, you know, our boots unbloused or our shoes untied or, you know, just not having the right gear, stuff like that. It's like, yo, we're going to need this stuff. And so, yeah, that was January, February, and went through Hell Week in February 2010, and like I went into that Hell Week sick. Like I was like I had lost like 10 to 15 pounds. Like I was just like when I went back to buds, I was in like the best shape of my life. I was like 24, 25. I was like peak physical condition. Like my swims were dialed, my runs were dialed. Like I was just a tank. And then I got sick like early on in first phase, and it was from swimming in that, shitty Mexican water, and just coming up the coast. And I remember I couldn't stop coughing. It was like on a Thursday or Friday before Hell Week, I just developed this cough, and I was nonstop coughing. And, my dad and my brother had came out to Coronado to, just kind of hang and be there for the breakout of Hell Week and all that stuff. And my dad was like, "You all right?" I was like, "Yeah, it just is what it is, It's like, I'm not going to like let a cough stop me." And then, yeah, man. So breakout was Sunday night, and they do this evolution. I mean, my buddies and I still talk about it. It's called Steel Pier, and it's like 2 a.m. You are on the bay side of the base, and you've been running around the base all night. You've already done your surf torture, your log PTs, all that stuff. You're just running around the base with this boat on your head. And then you go to this steel pier in the bay, and you jump in the water, and you get in ranks, and you tread water for however long. You get out, and then you start stripping off clothing, and then you get back in, and you get out, and you get back in, and you get out, and basically till you're down to in your underwear. And then you lay down on this steel pier, and they're spraying you with a hose, and you got like your arms up in the air, and you're doing flutter kicks. Your hips are locked up because it's so cold. Like you could see your breath, you're just jackhammering, teeth chattering, like freezing. And then you get back in the water. And I remember so you can't think twice about it, It's like now I do these cold plunges in the morning now, and they still suck, 38 degrees for 5 minutes or whatever. It's like, I don't even think about it. Like, I don't try to psych myself up about anything. I'm like, don't be a bitch, just do it. And I just jump in. Can't tiptoe in or any of that. And I remember standing on the edge of this steel pier just thinking like, don't think, just go. Like, enter the water. It's like you just jump in. And guys they'd stand there and they'd think about it, and then they'd go quit. And we lost a lot of guys on that evolution. And yeah, man, that was awful. But then, you get out and you get your wet clothes back on, and then you start carrying this boat, and you start sweating again, and start getting beaten. So Tuesday morning, I'm still coughing and all that stuff, but then it's like I kind of like I got in this weird, like, I don't want to say funk, but like my vision started to get blurry, and it was like my eyes were like crossed without me crossing them. Like I was seeing like what's on the right, on the left, and vice versa without me crossing my eyes. I'm like, this is different. You know what I'm saying? And so Tuesday morning, I'm like, I go to the med truck. I'm like, I was like, I don't feel right. He's like, what's up? He's like, I've been coughing since Friday. I'm like, I just don't feel right. And he's like, all right, well, cough in your hand, cough up whatever you got in your lungs in your hand. So I like hawked up whatever I had, spit it in my hand. And it was just like this big, like loogie of blood. And it was like dark red.
Sponsorship for this podcast comes from Brothers in Arms USA. They're a veteran-owned and operated clothing and accessories brand that's 100% American-made. Every piece tells a story of brotherhood, respect, discipline, and honor. Deeply inspired by those who serve, those who have served, and those who have paid the ultimate price serving our great country. Whether you're an outdoor enthusiast, a proud patriot, or simply somebody who values high-quality American craftsmanship, they've got something for you. Go check out brothersinarms.com, spelled out fully, brothersandarms.com, and use the promo code TRANSITION20 to get 20% off your purchase.
He's like, all right, go to medical. So I go to the medical building, and they gave me dry clothes. They gave me like this blanket that just came out of the dryer. It was like toasty warm. Put on this watch cap, and I'm like sitting there. I'm still like shivering. And I just remember thinking like, man, tell me to go back out there. God damn it, I'll go back out there. But if they tell me I'm rolled, I'll take that roll. And they came in and they're like, all right, you're getting rolled and you're going to Balboa Hospital and you're going to get checked out further. Well, it turns out I had SIPE and pneumonia, which SIPE is swimmer-induced pulmonary edema. It's like your lungs fill up with fluid, and then pneumonia on top of that. So I probably went in with some form of pneumonia going into the Hell Week, and then developed the SIPE from being in the water. And
I think one of the things that's craziest for me in all of the SEALs now that I've had as guests, the number of guys who got SIPE, the number of injuries, and just all of the medical stuff that's in the back going on that we as the general public just don't ever hear about.
It's crazy, man. Like very few, if any, people are going through BUDS like 100%, you know? Because it's not like when you train, it's not like going to the gym and doing a workout. Think of the hardest workout you do, whether it's CrossFit or whatever. Like, now imagine doing that, like soaking wet, like freezing cold, covered in sand, and not doing it like with perfect form. You know, like you want to talk about like doing lunges with a log and 6 guys on a log, and
all varying heights or close to
varying heights, and also not in sync. So it's like half the logs going down and the other half are still getting up, and it's like, and you're slamming your knee into the ground and you're pushing back up. It's like, you're not doing this with like perfect execution. You're just like, that's why they call it beat downs. Like, you're literally beating your body down. Like the first log PT I did, all we did was lunges in place for 2 hours. 2 hours. And I mean, we'd hit the surf a couple times, but for the most part, it was like we dug a trench, you know, and then like all the sand's kicking up in your face. So now you're like choking on, you know, dry dirt, not getting water breaks, you know. I mean, it's like, it's no joke, dude. Like, I mean, and it's like you said, like the general public, like, you know, they hear a story or they read a book or they watch a show, but until you're like in that position and you're going through it, like, you don't know. And
well, I think too, I would imagine most people probably think when you become a SEAL and get your Trident, you just went through one time and you made it all the way through. I don't think a lot of them really realize how many times it took for that guy to actually get there.
Sure. I mean, I got one of my good buddies, he quit and then he went back and he made it straight through. But he was like one of like 6 that were originals. Like their class probably graduated like 35 to 40 people, you know, probably let's say 40 people got pinned. 6 were from the original class 1 year ago.
And I'm not taking anything away from anybody who gets through on their first try.
Right.
But a lot of it, and I don't want to underplay it, but a lot of it is just luck.
Sure.
It's luck. Like you said, you weren't doing a log lunge and didn't jack up a knee. Or,
right.
I mean, just so I'm not taking it away from them, but at the same token, I'm saying a lot of it is just.
Totally. And, you know, my CO, my commanding officer at BUDS, when I was going back through, he had said that, you know, when we were about to class up, he's like, you know, this training, you know, it's a lot of it's will and a lot of it's resilience, but there is some luck involved. And I'm like, that can't be right. Because I have a hard time believing in luck, you know, and I mean, I feel like there is something there where it's like, I mean, there is right place, right time. There is luck, but it's just like, I had a hard time buying it. And I mean, now I'm a little bit more, I understand it a little bit more, but yeah, like my buddy, he went through first time, no problem, no roll, no medical, no performance. But you know, he's told me, he's like, I hit a wall, like where I didn't want to do this anymore. And I had to like dig deep and remind myself, you know, why I'm here. And so going back to what I was talking about earlier, like where everybody thinks about quitting, like for him, it was in training, like during Hell Week. For me, it was after I got that roll from 281 for the sickness. And I'll never forget it because I was like, I was recovering. It was probably like maybe 2 weeks since I got rolled. Driving down the Strand. It's like Saturday morning. I'm like all toasty warm in my car, going to go get breakfast. And I got the heat on. I'm just like just driving, and I'm just thinking like about classing up again and about having to do all this over again, like a fourth first phase, a third hell week. You know, I went into, 281, like I said, peak physical condition. Now here I am recovering from SIPE and pneumonia, and I'm like not at peak. I mean, I can still pass everything, but I'm not like as strong as I want to be going into this. And to be honest, I don't want to do this again. Like, it sucks. I'm just thinking about all this shit. It's like boats, the logs, the surf torture, the inspections, the grind. Those first 3 weeks, in my opinion, are harder than Hell Week, because it's just, it's 3 weeks of it. And, Hell Week is it's 1 week. It's just one long evolution where you sleep for a few hours on Wednesday and Thursday. And I mean, what I thought the hardest part about training was like waking up, because you're like, you wake up like stiff, and like, you get cold sweats at night, so your bed's drenched. And then you got to go back out there and do this again, a whole new day. And who knows when you're going to get secured for the day. I mean, there's days where I got like 15 minutes of sleep, which is like, why even lay down, At least with Hell Week, I don't have to worry about waking up. It's just like, just go,
I've got a touchy-feely question. So these periods between when you're getting the medical drop, and so you've got a couple weeks to heal up from the SIPE, the pneumonia, that is within the SEAL community. You mentioned when you were a Gitmo, you knew a SEAL buddy who was kind of being a mentor to you. But I'm imagining, again, it goes back to if the community still sees something in you and they want you to succeed when you come back in a couple weeks, are they giving you anybody who's talking to you on a daily, keeping you positive, keeping you in the game?
Nah, it's not touchy-feely like that. I mean, there's a couple instructors that I remember who they were like dads, and they'd be like, yeah, we know it sucks. We've been through it, but it's like, it's worth it on the other end. Like, and they didn't do that because they had to do it. They did that just because they were good mentors, good team guys, good dudes. And,
so in a weird way, you're going through this, you're not doing it by yourself, but you're almost kind of on an island by yourself, in the sense of, you've got to, it's all internal. Keep pushing you forward.
Yeah. I mean, you try to buddy up with guys that you think are going to make it. But dude, there was 15 of us in our little group, and out of 15 of us, only 3 of us made it. So that's 1 in 5. Right. And I thought that the guys I was buddied up with were like hitters, and look, they were all crushing the swims, the runs, the O course, all that stuff, and everybody's like, all hoo-yah on a sunny day when it's cool, and, you're not getting, beat down at every turn. Anybody can be, positive when it's going good, but it's like when you hit that wall, like, and everybody hits it, it's like, that's when the training starts. It's like the training starts when you don't want to do it anymore. It's like, that's what this is. And for me, that was driving in the car and thinking about all this shit I had to do again. I'm like, man, like, I'm not even cold or getting beat right now. I'm just thinking about doing it. I had a buddy who he quit when he was, his boat crew had won a race, and he was sitting on the berm, and he was, he pays to be a winner. He didn't have to do the next evolution. He was just sitting there, but he was watching everybody else getting surf tortured in the water. And he was just thinking, man, like, I don't want to have to do that again. And he talked himself out of it, and he just went and quit when he wasn't even, and this guy was a stud, like just a beast. He was just passing with flying colors, all the evolutions, like, never had a problem, but he just didn't want to do it. And he talked himself out of it,
So it's a weird thing, but you can't, I say you can't. Your mind is such a powerful muscle.
Totally.
And once it turns the corner, it's virtually impossible to get it to come back.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, bro, is like the difference between that first weekend after I failed those first 2 pool comp tests and the attitude and the mindset I had there. Like I felt like I couldn't pull myself out of this slump because I was only focused on the negatives,
Right.
you know? So it really is just like your attitude is everything. You know, you hear it when you're a kid and it doesn't really make sense or whatever, but it's like, I mean, it's true in everything. In everything you do, it's like your perspective on things, you know? And, you know, so when I finally like got I fleshed it all out in my head. I'm like, all right, I'd done 4 years in the Navy. You know, I could get out. Nobody would, you know, think less of me for, you know, for quitting. Cause I mean, most people can't do 1 first phase or hell week. I'm on my 4th first phase, 3rd hell week. It's like, no one's going to like give me a hard time about that. It's like, can I live with that? You know, it's like, no, it's like, this is all I want to do. And it's like, what do I have to do it? Or to get what I, you know, get that bird? It's like, I got to go through it all again, you know? And so that was it. You know, that was the last time I thought about quitting or anything like that. It was like, all right, let's just get back on the saddle and do it again. And so I ended up classing up with 283, and it was a couple months later, maybe like a month and a half later, and then went through first phase, same shit, different day. Made it through Hell Week, didn't really have any problems. And then I got to second phase, and going into second phase, I woke up like day 1 of second phase, and I went to get out of my rack. I put my feet on the ground and I almost collapsed because my legs were pretty much broken just from all the running. So went to medical, and they ended up putting me on crutches. I got a medical roll. Now this was my 2nd medical roll, and you kind of brought it up earlier about like, you know, instructors that see you and may want you to, you know, see you succeed or get to the teams and stuff like that. It's like by this time, these instructors know who I am. You know what I'm saying? Like there was a guy that was, a couple instructors were still there from when I was there the first time, and they recognized me. And, you know, thankfully I wasn't, you know, too big of a shitbag to where they're like, hey, you know, let's get this guy out of here. Like, he's just like, can't hack it. You know, they're like, dude, just keep going. And, so I was fortunate to get a second roll, and they're a little bit more like, you know, it's a case by case basis, you know, and they saw that I had gotten rolled in Hell Week for pneumonia and SIPE. And now they saw that I got broken legs, you know, so they're like, all right.
Where were the breaks at?
Well, it was shin splints,
okay,
but it felt like my legs were broken.
Right.
Like I couldn't walk, you know, I had to rehab for almost like 9 months.
Oh, shin splints ain't no joke.
Man, it's funny. Like people think they're a joke, and it's funny because I never heard of shin splints until I got into the Navy, and I never thought anything of them until I had them. And I'm like, dude, this is like crippling, you know? And I still have like, you know, in my left leg, I've still got like pain in my shin, you know, but it's just, you know, it's not, like I said, I just live with it. But yeah, man. So I got rolled from 283 into 287, and that sucked because, you know, all these classes that I had been in, like, were good classes. Like, I mean, I had guys in my classes that, you know, got killed downrange, you know, Brendan Looney, Chuck Keating, you know, Pat Feeks, you know, Pat Feeks is from Maryland. That's where I'm from, you know, and we were in the same boat crew together. And it's like, and that was another thing that sucked too, is like seeing all your buddies just keep going through the training, because it doesn't stop just because you get rolled or dropped, you know, they just keep going, and you're just kind of like left behind, man. And I get it, you know, but just seeing all these guys and they're doing deployments and they're doing all the stuff that I'm trying to get to. And then they, you know, some of these guys get killed. You're like, damn, dude, like, it's just like a lot to think about. But yeah, that one hurt because I really wanted to. I was really hoping to stick it out with 283 because I was on a roll. I was the LPO. I felt like I had a good class. I had a good OIC. Just good dudes. And then I get rolled into 287 and second phase. Like if you look at if you were to write all this down and you look at first class made it to Hell Week. Second class made it through Hell Week, rolled at the beginning of second phase. Third class dropped in second phase. And then you line up the next three classes. First class get rolled in Hell Week, so essentially the same as the first class. The next class get rolled at the beginning of second phase. Same thing that happened in my second class the first time. Now here I am again. Third
You're
class.
like, shit, I've seen this play before.
Dude, it is I'm like Groundhog Day, So
one of the things that's rattling in my head is I was thinking about it. I wonder if there would ever be a way to actually go back and track the total number of days in SEAL training to get a trident and who's in the history of it, who's had the most days. Because it sounds like you got to be near the top of that list.
I think I'm up there, but I know I'm not the one. I know there's guys that have done the same. Another buddy of mine from Maryland, we used to joke because he had the exact same career path that I did, where he got dropped after pool comp or dropped after Hell Week for it wasn't even pool comp, it was something else in second phase. Went out to the fleet, came back, made it through, and it was he's like, I'm all about the small percentages, the small percentage of guys that make it through Hell Week, the small percentage of guys that get dropped after Hell Week, and then the even smaller percent that come back and make it through the training. I like that. That's got a good sound to it. But I did at one point, I tallied it up. I think I did over 30 log PTs, just with between Indoc, first phase, Hell Week, and then, random ones scattered here and there. I counted them up. I did I think it was 32. I'd have to go back. I need to go back and write all this stuff down because it's as I talk about it, I remember stuff. But there's a lot of stuff I forgot too.
Well, it's one of those numbers that unfortunately, once you finally do get through it, it's numbers that nobody really cares about anymore. And it really doesn't get you any benefit.
Nothing, dude. Nothing. When I checked into my team, it was nobody gave a shit. Nobody asked. I never talked about it. It was that's buds, man. Nobody cares about buds. You're in the big leagues now. You're in the SEAL teams. We talking about SEAL team shit, I mean, it's kind of bittersweet that my story is mostly just about me getting through buds, I had fun in the teams and it was a good time and I got to, go down range and stuff like that. But I mean, it took me 6 years to get through a 1 year pipeline. You know what I'm saying? Between going to Gitmo and getting rolled and, all that stuff, it took me 6 years. I joined the Navy, Halloween of 2006, and I got pinned March 2nd, 2012. That's 6 years right there where I was just all I wanted to do was get to that gold trident. And, yeah, it was a crazy ride. And so going back to 287, what's up?
I was just going to say, when you put it in that perspective, and as you're getting closer, by 2012, are you starting to, as the periphery, kind of feel the slowdown
of the
op tempo?
Yeah.
Can you already kind of feel that, even though you haven't even made it to a team yet?
And that hurt too. I was lucky enough to actually go to Afghanistan and do ops and stuff like that and work with dudes who had been in the teams a long time and have done, the kinetic hot deployments. So I got to taste it a little bit, but not what I wanted, just because I was weak genes trying to get through fucking buds, man. But it is what it is.
I would imagine for you, and again, it goes back to that. It doesn't matter how many days, how many times you went through, but finally getting that trident for you, just inside yourself had to be finally.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was kind of surreal. So let me go back to 287 real quick, because that's where I went. That was my last class. And when I classed up with them, I made it straight through with no more issues, no more rolls or anything like that. But when I got to pool comp, this is my, second time through this, like passing Hell Week again, like I'd already done it, been there, done that, got the brown t-shirt, everybody else, they were like, hugging each other and crying and like, we did it. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I remember my first time.
Turn the page. We got the book keeps going.
Dude, first thing I thought about after Hell Week was pool comp. Like, that's where like my monster is like waiting for me, And so going into pool comp, I think at the time, because I was crushing pool week, no problem with any of the tests. And going into pool comp, I kind of like had a little bit of like an arrogance to it, because I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm not even going to give this thing a second thought. I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to do it. And then I failed my first 2 tests. I was like, I think I might have underestimated it. Not even underestimated it. I just didn't give it the respect it deserved, because I was just thinking like, I was trying to almost like trick my brain into thinking like, I'm not going to let this thing like intimidate me, like just because I got dropped for it, it's like I'm doing well now, like I'm healed up as best as I'll be, and I'm doing good with everything, all my evolutions, so I'm not gonna like let this thing freak me out. And then when I went into it and I failed my first 2 tests over like little things that I'm like, oh my god, like here we are again, this long weekend, and I'm at a point where it's like I've had 2 medical rolls, but I'm like I can't afford to be in front of a board for anything. So the difference between that weekend and the first weekend was I actually drug my ass out to the grinder and I took those tanks and I just drilled for 6 hours each day. So 12 hours total, 6 hours Saturday, 6 hours Sunday. I laid out the mat, got down on my knees, had the tanks, filled my mask up with water, and I had like a bucket of water. I would just dip my mask in, put it on. I'd take a deep breath, and then I would go through my procedures of taking the tanks off and putting them back on and strapping them on with the weight belt like perfectly. And I would do it as many times as I could on like a breath hold. And I would just over and over and over and over and over and over and over, just like till I got to a point where I'm like, okay, it's getting dark and I feel like I've done enough for today. Come back tomorrow, do it again. And then by the time Monday rolled around, man, I was just so locked in and I was so like focused on, I didn't think about anything else. It was just like, I will beat pool comp. And I was saying that, I was saying those words out loud. Like I was brainwashing myself into passing this test. And so I enter the water on my 3rd test. 20 minutes later, I do my FSA, come to the surface, and my instructor's like, how do you think you did? I'm like, well, I think I did all right. He's like, you crushed it. It's like, oh. Like that to me almost felt like getting my trident, like, because now it's like I finally have like I've crushed my nightmare, if I finally have gotten past it, but I didn't let up either, because that was my mistake the first time, was letting my foot off the gas a little bit. And it's like, oh, I made it through Hell Week, I can make it through anything. It's like, no, man, like you got to stay. It's like, there's a reason why they say the only easy day is yesterday. It's like, it's not just like some like, cool like phrase that we just made up. It's like, the training doesn't get easier. Like you get stronger, you get harder, and you just got to keep that going. And it was crazy too, because the guy who I passed with, that was his last class as an instructor. When I got dropped, that was his first class as an instructor. So it was just like, it all came full circle. So that was just like, that was next level, man. Like I was pretty pumped about that. And I just took that momentum and I just ran with it through the rest of buds into SQT. And like I said, no more hiccups, no more, no more boards, none of that. And then I actually got to a point where I could enjoy like training and, buddying up with, the guys in my class. And,
I would imagine third phase has to be the fun phase.
you'd think, but I mean, third phase actually sucks a lot. There's, you do 2 weeks in Coronado and then you go out to San Clemente Island, and that is like the best kept secret of buds, because you don't see it. When you're at buds, you're just on the grinder, you're on the base there. When you go out to the island, man, like you're away from the flagpole, like there's nobody to keep you from the instructor's wrath, like they lay it on you, like you're still a buds guy. And that's kind of like, I feel like you should always be a student, and you should always be learning, and you should always be, you should never get to a point where you're like, oh, well, I've already done all this, so I deserve to be treated a certain way, or I deserve to, it's like, cause look, man, there's always another horizon, it's like, okay, you go from white shirt to brown shirt. Now you go from brown shirt to post pool comp. Now you go from post pool comp to SQT, and you go from SQT to the teams. Now you're a new guy. Then you're a one platooner. And then, it's like, there's always something where it's like, it doesn't matter what you've done. It's like to a point, right? I mean, it's like, you should be proud of like what you've done, but you don't like rest on those laurels. You don't like let that become your identity to the point where it's like, well, I'm too good to take out the trash, or I'm too good to pick up this school, or I'm too good for anything, And so I try to like, and that was, like we were talking about earlier, like going to Gitmo, like those were the things like that time helped me understand things like that, maybe not that specifically, but it helped me grow. It helped me mature. And then, it kept me humble going through the training, even though, like I said, I kind of maybe went into pool comp the second time with a little bit of like, hey, I got this kind of attitude, but that shit got shut down fast, And so I had to realign myself and be like, okay, right. We gave the cocky attitude a try, and that didn't work out for us. So let's stay on the humble path, because that's really where you're going to go the furthest. And that, in my experience, like that's what it's been, because look, getting through buds, those first 6 years of my time in the Navy, like I had so many setbacks, so many failures, so many losses, so many doors slamming in my face, and it felt like I couldn't get a break. And I'm not bitching here. I'm just explaining what it was, right? Because like I said, it's all about your attitude, right? But once I got pinned, doors started flying open for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I still had to work hard, and I still had to do my job and be good at it. And yeah, I probably could have done better than what I did, but I still, I was so stoked to be part of a SEAL team. I volunteered for everything. That was one of the things that I had heard early on in my career. It's like, look, even if you don't know what you're doing, just throw your hand up. If somebody says, hey, we need a guy, before they even finish the sentence, throw your hand up. And that's what I would do. It's like, I'll figure it out, or I won't, and somebody will help me, or they'll bitch at me, but whatever. It's like, I volunteered, I put it out there, and I'm willing to, fail or look like an idiot to get it done. It's like, whatever, man, like it's not that big of a deal. But because I did those things, because I was able to, volunteer, put myself out there, and do things that other people didn't want to do, I ended up getting the things I wanted, which was the schools. It was my top three were sniper, breacher, and canine handler. I got all three of those schools. And it wasn't because, maybe it was luck, right place, right time kind of thing. Like, on my first deployment to Afghanistan, towards the end of deployment, I had no schools. Like we were talking earlier about Johnny Walker and, going to language school. Like that was the only school I had was I knew 6 months of Pashto. And it was like, I mean, I'm glad I did it because I got to actually use it on target and stuff and tell people, in their own language, put your hands up, turn around, come to me, stuff like that. It was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But nothing like sexy as far as like sniper, but then towards the end of deployment, my chief asked me, he's like, yo, like, what do you want to do? What school do you want to go to? I was like, sniper. So went to sniper school and, the sniper school was, I feel like every SEAL should go through it because it teaches you like basic sneaky peeky frogman shit. And it's so sick. I mean, it's so much fun. You're shooting, awesome weapons, at long distances, you're learning how to, get all camoed up and stalk and just, I mean, taper your gear to, for the mission. And it's super cool. A lot of fun. And I actually had to compete against, like 5 other guys to go to sniper school, 5 other guys from my platoon that all wanted to go. So we all had to shoot like the standard Navy iron sights M4 qual. And I happened to be the top shot and got first pick to go to sniper school. And some of those guys, they had the same wish list that I had, sniper, breacher, canine, right? And but because I went to sniper school first, when I got back and those other guys went to sniper school, a spot opened up to go to the canine school. And here I am, send me. So got to go do that. And that was like the team within the team, it's like the SEAL teams are small, but the dog team's even smaller, and then like, and then
does every team have a dog?
Every team has a dog. So the way it kind of works is, and I don't know, the dog thing is, it's always kind of like, for whatever reason, they always want to try to get rid of the dog program, which I don't get because those dogs have saved so many dudes' lives. Those dogs have like my dog got killed saving dudes' lives, I wasn't with him, but they took a rocket to the back of an RG and the dog took the hit and just charcoaled him. I mean, the other guys in front of the dog got fragged, got, fucked up a little bit, but they lived. That dog died for my brothers, and it's like, and they always want to try to get rid of it. So to answer your question, like each team has, 3 different troops, and in each troop you have 2 platoons, right? So you got Troop 1's Alpha Bravo, Troop 2, Charlie Delta, Troop 3, Echo Fox, sometimes Golf, and then now with more guys coming through the training, now each troop might have 3 platoons, right? So you could have 1 dog per troop, right? So 1 dog per 2 or 3 platoons, or you could have 1 dog for the whole team. It just depends on like what's going on with the dog team. And like I said, for whatever reason, they're always trying to get rid of it. And I feel like it's, I don't know, budget, like just trying to figure out like, do we need the dogs anymore? Like we're not in kinetic combat anymore. Like why do we train the dogs? Which I got a real problem with the way things are run because it's like, it's always reactive, from what I've seen, it's always like, hey, now we need a dog. And it's like, all right, well, it's going to take, a year to get a green dog up to where it needs to be. It's like, that dog should be ready. We shouldn't have to get ready, so it just really depends on what's going on and how many dogs we have in the kennel, how many dogs are deployed, how many dogs are staying back, how many dogs are fit for duty, if dogs are getting retired, do we have, like a good line on dogs that we want to bring into the program? Like there's a lot of things that, and is the program even going to stick around, so, but I love the dogs. I love the training with the dogs. I got to do more training as a dog guy because like I said, not every platoon had a dog. So working at the dog team, I was able to attach myself to other platoons that were going through training that didn't have a dog. They needed a dog. I was like, hey, I'm a dog guy. I'm working at Trade Ed. They're willing to let me go over and work with you guys. And that kept me sharp. So it's like, even when I was like, at a, training command, I was still training with the platoons and still, getting the extra reps in, which I loved. So yeah, the dog team was the shit.
Comparing it to law enforcement canine. So the dogs coming into the teams, are they basically getting the same type of training like a police canine, and then you take it even further, or are you doing it from the, ground running, just dogs for the teams?
It's typically just dogs for the teams, because a lot of times, I don't want to get too much into it, because I feel like the dogs is kind of a racket, because the dog can't tell you what's wrong with him or what he can and what his capabilities are, right? So, when we go to get a dog, if it's a green dog, whoever we're buying it from is like, oh yeah, look, he can do this, he can do that, he can do this. And then you're like, all right, great, let's get this dog. And then you get the dog, and then you get him around gunfire and he shuts down, or he has hip dysplasia, which happened to one of my dogs. And it's like something's messed up with him that we didn't know about. And so now it's like, so then what happens with these dogs is they end up going to police departments and stuff like that. So typically we get dogs that are green, brand new, come from a good bloodline, legit. And then we train them up to our standard. And as long as they can, perform to that standard, we keep them. And then they're like weapons, it's like serialized gear. We just, when I deployed with my dog, I trained with him for a year, deployed with him for 7 months, came back. I became a trainer at the dog team. And then I gave my dog to another guy to go work with. And he deployed with him, and that's where he got killed. The dog. I mean,
like police dogs, does the dog go home with you at night, or does it stay at the team space?
It depends on who's in charge. I was always about bringing the dog home. And I brought my dog home. But it just depends on who's in charge. And, I think the closer bond you have with your dog, the better. It's like, I mean, that dog is like your responsibility. It's your collateral duty, and you got to make sure he's fed, you got to make sure he's in shape, hydrated, all that stuff, and clean up after him, just build that bond with your dog. Some people either couldn't bring their dogs home because they had other personal dogs or kids or whatever. And then sometimes they're like, well, the dogs are staying in the kennel. It's like, all right, man, like whatever you think's best, I guess.
When you're talking about guys on the team, and a lot of people want to be dog handlers, but that's such a specific type of training comparing it to like sniper training. Does that lock you in almost in a negative way as far as opportunity or advancement because you've committed to being a dog handler?
I guess it depends. I mean, I've seen guys like where all they want to do is the dog thing, and they do that, and it could potentially hurt them. But I know guys I put guys through training who they just did 2 years at the dog team, and then they went off and they did something else. And, they just wear a bunch of different hats. And I mean, I wasn't in long enough to really stay in one position, I wasn't in the teams that long. It took me 6 years to get through the training. I told myself I'm going to give 6 years back to the training and then make my decision from there. And I kind of just set that little standard for myself, thinking that I'm going to do 20 plus and, screen, and I want to be a master chief and all this other stuff. But as it was, that didn't happen. But I mean, from what I've seen, you can, like I said, no one cares about your career more than you do. So if you want to be a dog guy for your whole career, you can try to work it to make that happen. I mean, guys, they go to one place and then they just ride it out there, whatever it may be. I like I said, I wanted Sniper, Breacher, Canine. And I ended up getting them through, right place, right time, luck, working hard, opportunity. I actually went to Breacher school while I was a Canine instructor. So I was at the Canine team, and one of my buddies who was there with me, he passed on going to Breacher school for whatever reason. And so like, yo, Collins, want to go to Breacher school? I'm like, hell yeah, dude. Like 4 weeks of just blowing stuff up and smashing doors and, doing some CQC. Like, let's go. Plus it's like another feather in your cap, and you've got, another skill to bring to the table. If I ever, you go back to a platoon, it's like, hey, these are my quals. This is what we need. This is what I got. So
the dog aspect, just one last component of it. What's it like jumping out of an airplane, or did you actually get to do that with a dog strapped to you?
I never got to do that with the dog. I did some rappelling with the dog, but and I mean, the dogs are great, man. Like, I mean, they do it all, I mean, they do the swimming, they do the rappelling, they do the jumping. A bunch of my buddies have done it, and they said it's fun. It's sketchy. I mean, jumping slick is sketchy, and now you got a dog on you, and he's like, what the hell are we doing up here? Like, so I'm thinking the same thing, dude. But, yeah, I would have loved to have done that, but, didn't happen.
So you've already alluded to it. You didn't do a full career. You got to 12.
Yeah.
When did the luster start wearing off and you start thinking, man, I'm not going to make 20?
Probably like the last year. There was like a lot of things going on that made me come to the decision to not continue on. But I think like when the thought entered my head, like I should just get out, I had the same kind of like butterflies in the gut that I did when I remembered that I wanted to be a SEAL. When I saw that dude walk in front of me going to enlist in the Army, and I remembered, hey, this is your calling. You are a SEAL. You got to go do this. I got the butterflies, and I had that same gut feeling when I thought about getting out, because I had a lot going on. Like, I was with my girlfriend at the time who, we were on track to get married, which we are now, coming up on 7 years, 3 kids.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah. I told myself, like, I'm never going to get married or have kids while I'm active duty in the SEAL teams, because for me, it wouldn't work. I didn't want to be a FaceTime dad or husband. I didn't want to be gone for, however many weeks out of the year for training and deployments and things like that. And, not see my kids, ball games or, see them grow up and things like that. And I didn't want to grow apart from my wife. Now, look, there's a lot of guys out there that make it work, and my hat's off to them. I could never do it. There's a lot of guys out there who it doesn't work, and that sucks. And I just didn't, I didn't want that. I didn't need that. My dog had just gotten killed, and I went out to Iraq to fill in as the dog handler for my dog. I went out there with another dog from the kennel.
You've got a lot of coffee options out there. You've got a lot of veteran and first responder-owned coffee companies as well. Trident Coffee is one of these companies, but they're different. Trident fuels your body and mind with a premium cold brew that's infused with powerful ingredients for performance, focus, and wellness. Made with organic MCT oil, lion's mane, and reishi mushrooms, this isn't just coffee. It's fuel for your brain, ensuring smooth, steady energy with no jitters and no crashes. Plus, the cocoa powder adds antioxidants, and the electrolytes keep you hydrated and balanced. Yes, they are cold brew experts, and their beans are brewed for cold brew optimization. But what does that mean for those of you who also love hot coffee like me? Their coffee tastes amazing, not bitter. So enjoy it hot or iced, mixed into your protein shake, or take it on the go. However you drink it, Trident Coffee is coffee upgraded. Get yours now at tridentcoffee.com and use the promo code TDP15 for 15% off your order. That's TDP 15 for 15% off your order. Stay sharp, stay fueled, stay ready.
I got out there and they basically took the dog and sent me packing, which I never understood because I had all the backing from my leadership in Coronado to say, hey, you're good to go. You know, you go deploy for the last 3 months of this deployment, you fill in as the dog handler, and then you redeploy with that team, and then you can, you know, check in with that team. You can go to that team. You know, your time's up at TRADET, you can just go to that team. And then I get to Iraq, and they're like, no, we're just taking the dog. You can head out. And that never made sense. And
I think of this from a liability question, so this may sound stupid, but you referred to the dog as a serialized piece of equipment. But a dog isn't an M4. A dog isn't your sniper rifle. A dog has to be able to work with the handler. Isn't there a minimum training time that the dog and the handler have to be together before you would actually deploy them?
So that's not a stupid question, and that's exactly the question that I proposed, and nobody had an answer for me. So I ended up running the handler through a test. I laid out different explosive odor, because I was like, yo, I am not comfortable with just turning over a dog that you've never worked with to you. And what if something happens? You know, we've already lost one dog. No, we don't want to lose anyone else, dog included, right? So let's run this route. And I placed 3 different odors, one low, one medium, one high. I was fair about it because I'm like, I want to see your skills with this dog. Let's see what it is. And, you know, the dog, I saw the dog alert on all 3 odors. He missed all 3 odors. The handler missed all 3 odors, which I'm like, all right, dude, like, this is what it is. This is what your dog did. You didn't pick up on it. Like, I can't in good conscience, like, just turn this dog over to you when you're missing odor. But if that's what you guys want, you know, because they were like, well, it got tense. And I was like, all right, well, this is my report that I'm bringing back to the command, because this isn't going to fall. This shouldn't fall on anybody. It's like, you should be dialed with this dog. And it's like, it's not your fault that you're just not, you know? So it turned into just a really sticky situation. And then I got back to the command and I explained, you know, what it was, and it just didn't go over well. And I started seeing a lot of things that I was not cool with, you know. I'm like, you know what, man? Like, I don't know if this. It's like, I feel like I'm at a party that is, you know, it's last call and I need to get out of here. You know, it's like, this isn't it for me anymore. And, you know, it's also one of those things where, you know, when it's the most scary, like, that's when you jump, you know, like when you don't know what you're going to do next, like, that's when you just go for it. Right. Because, like, I had no plan getting out. That's what everybody was like, oh, well, what are you going to do? What's your plan? I'm like, dude, I don't have a plan. I've made plans and it got me to Guantanamo Bay, and I've made plans and it got me rolled. And it's like, I set goals, you know, I set goals for myself. And then that way I can figure out a way to get to that goal. It's like, because what happens is when people make plans and those plans get derailed or don't go according to plan, then they get frustrated. Then they feel like a failure. Then they give up on their dream or their goal. It's like, if I have a goal and whatever path I'm taking towards that goal, like, something happens, then I can flex. It's easier to flex if I'm not dead set on a plan. Right. And that's just how I roll. I mean, I know a lot of people are like, may disagree with it. Fine. But for me, I'm like, I don't have a plan. All I know is, like, I want to get out and I want to do something else, and I'll figure it out. And so far, I got out in 2018. I did 11 years, 11 months, and 29 days. And there was no like glorious send off or anything like that. It was just kind of like, see you later. And that was just me and my wife for like a year.
I didn't ask you this before, but were you always a West Coast team?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever want to get to the East Coast?
Nope. Unless I was going to screen for Dam Neck. But I grew up on the East Coast. As soon as I got to California, man, I'm like, I'm never leaving, dude. I don't care what their politics are. I don't care who's running this place. Like, you're going to have to drag me out of here. It's like the beach, the palm trees, like, you know, beautiful girls. Like, I mean, it's just too much fun, you know? So yeah, I stayed out on the West Coast. Once I got back to training, I've been here ever since.
So you're talking about you were a year. Do you have anything going on at all?
I mean, I did the Honor Foundation, which is like it started out for SEALs, but now I think, you know, pretty much anybody can go do it when they get out of the Navy and they're transitioning. You know, it's just kind of like
I believe it's still only special operations though, right?
Okay.
I think.
Yeah. I mean, it started out with just SEALs, but then they went like with SWIC guys and then support people. And now, I mean, I don't know who's doing it. It's a good program. You know, it helped me a lot with, you know, building resumes and, you know, kind of learning about the corporate world and stuff like that, which I'm still kind of figuring out. But yeah.
They push you to go back to college?
They didn't really push me. They, you know.
No, I'm just like, by going through it, did it motivate you to want to go back to college?
No. I mean, I just got approved for the VRNE, which is a veteran. I think it's like veteran readiness education, something like that. So I'm gonna be going back to school here soon. I still got my GI Bill, but yeah, I mean, see, my thing now is like after a year of being out, I just kind of like, it's like, I just want to just kind of decompress for a little bit, you know, and it took
grow your hair a little bit.
Yeah. No haircuts, no shaving, man. Like I did that every day for 12 years. Like, I would try to like get by like one day without shaving, and I always got caught, you know. I always got caught because I just get the 5 o'clock shadow at like, you know, 8 a.m, you know. But yeah, I'm over that. And yeah, I mean, it's
for all of us who can't grow hair, fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what everybody says. But, you know, it was nice just to kind of get out, spend some time with my wife, you know, just me and her. We were newlyweds, like, got pregnant within the year. You know, my oldest just turned 5. Just kind of like learning how to be a human being again, you know, like learning how to just not be like just like a soldier, you know, which I love being a soldier. I love knowing how to shoot. I love teaching people how to shoot. After a year, that's what I kind of fell back into was I didn't stray too far from the watering hole. I went and I contracted for the Navy, teaching EOD guys how to shoot, move, and communicate on like a basic level. And I actually became a better shooter doing that than I ever was in the teams, even going to sniper school. So that's kind of like my thing now. Like I love shooting. I love going to the range. I'm actually working on, and this is what I'm going to school for, is like building out my own like brand and my own like tactical training. I got a few ideas that are not out there right now, which I feel like I got to move on before somebody thinks of it. Because I mean, there's no shortage of YouTube videos or training you can do with former special forces or, you know, police or whoever, you know, teaching you how to shoot. And I'm on there too. I'm always looking up YouTube videos of like, hey, how'd they do this, or what's the best way to do that? And actually, one of my drills, that's why I like the name of your podcast, the transition drill. It's like one of my favorite drills, is going from your primary to your secondary, lickety split, but
along the lines of finding work when you got out, the opportunity to become a shooting instructor, did you go look for it, or was it through your network of connections that somebody offered it to you?
I think it was a little bit of both, because when the job first came across my desk, I turned it down because I was like, it's not the kind of money I want to make. It's a lot lower than what I want to make, and I just didn't have a good feeling about it. So I held out, and I found another gig.
What I'm getting at is, and I'm thinking about that advice piece. How did you get your name out there for somebody to even throw you out the offer?
So actually, a buddy of mine that's still active, he brought it to my attention, and because he's a big networker, he'll talk to anybody, and he was like, "Yo, man, like, I know you're out, but this opportunity." I just heard about it from this buddy of mine at the gym, give him a call. So I called him up, and yeah, man, he was like, yeah, well, the job's still here if you change your mind. So then like a year later, I hit him up, and he was like, yeah, just give me like a month and we'll get you in. And I still had my clearance, I had all the quals, I checked all the boxes. So it was pretty easy to slide in. And it was a good gig while it lasted, just shooting every day, teaching people how to shoot every day. So it was a lot of fun. I did that for the past, I did that for 4.5 years. I just left that job in June of 2024. Then the whole contract went away in August. So I feel like I have a good sense of like when to bounce, because even getting out of the Navy, like, I didn't necessarily want to get out, but I was just feeling like I should probably get out. Like, this is just not going in the direction that I like. And, I was 2018, and then the end of 2018, and then a year later, COVID hit, and then that got weird in the military. Like, I probably would have had an ass chewing about that too. But I feel like everything happens for a reason also, and so got out of the Navy, got out of this last job, and the contract went away. So yeah, man, I'm just trying to just take it, one day at a time, one evolution at a time, and just see how it all unfolds.
And the job you have now is like a security or safety? Safety,
yeah. So I work for the District Council of Ironworkers and the California Ironworker Employers Council, and I'm their safety director. And so I shadowed a guy for my predecessor. I shadowed him for 6 months, just going out to different job sites, just knowing what to look for, running through line by line, like what everybody needs to have in check, going over policies, going over just new things that OSHA's rolling out. Got my OSHA 30 qual, went to superintendent's course, just been going to a lot of different like schools through that. My bosses are awesome. I look at it like it's all about your attitude and your mindset, right? Like, my boss is a big hunter, and I never really did any hunting other than people, which was short-lived, but never hunted any animals or anything like that growing up. And whenever we had like a break in training or leave or anything like that, I was always just like going out to the bars and chasing down girls or whatever.
The fun kind of
hunting, the different kind of hunting. But I had other buddies that were like going to like Africa and hunting big game, and like going to Alaska or the Yukon and like, killing bears and stuff. And I was like, yeah, it seems cool. But like, I don't like to jump into something like completely like new without having some sort of mentor or somebody that has the inside track on it, because like, I don't want to get like suckered on something and, so my boss, he's been hunting his whole life, and he's kind of taken me under his wing, and, you know, he's taken me dove hunting, duck hunting. You know, I just, I've been working with Seal Future Foundation for a couple years, and, you know, they do a lot of shoots and, you know, teaching civilians how to shoot, you know, shoot with a seal kind of stuff. And I'm like, hey man, like that's right up my alley, you know? So I've been volunteering with them and teaching people how to shoot, and it keeps me sharp. And, I applied to go on one of their deer hunting trips, and luckily got picked up. And so I went out to Texas in January and bagged my first buck. So I kind of look at my job as like, this is like my collateral duty and my training before deployment. My new deployments are going on hunts, you know, going out and about to get my first real bow here in a little bit, and I'm stoked on that. Because I've been shooting guns my whole life, and it's fun. I love it, but I really want to get into the bow hunting piece because I just feel like it's a little bit more intimate, a little bit more primal, you know. And I mean, I had a bow.
Less room for error, that's for sure.
Yeah, man. It's like aim small, miss small for sure. And I mean, I have a bow, but it's just a little bit like the draw length is a little bit too long for me. Like I don't have the wingspan for it. So I'm going to get this other bow, and I'm looking forward to that. So that's like what I look at as like my deployments is like these hunts that I get to go on.
This safety position piece, I'm assuming that it's something that was never even on your radar before you had it.
Nope.
How did it come about? And for somebody who might be looking like, hey, that might sound interesting, what would you recommend getting in their toolkit before applying for one of these spots?
Yeah. So a buddy of mine, he got linked up with another foundation called Beyond the Brotherhood, and Jimmy May runs it, and he's a good dude.
I've had him on the podcast. Cool people.
Yeah, yeah. And so he went through Beyond the Brotherhood, and then he met Greg McClelland, who is the head of the Western Steel Council, and he got hooked up with a job with Greg, and then he came to me and was like, hey man, like if you're looking to do something outside of, you know, being a contractor, I got a good opportunity for you. And so I was like, all right, send it. He put me in touch with Greg. I called Greg up. We clicked immediately. And he offered me the position, worked through some kinks. He was able to translate my resume, which is like 12 years in the Navy, 6 years as a SEAL, sniper, breacher, canine handler. Like that doesn't really have a whole lot of, it doesn't really give you a whole lot of options in the corporate world. You know, it's like, what am I going to do with a sniper? You know, it's like you kind of stay. I mean, that's why I went and did the contracting thing, because you kind of stay close to what you know. But I mean, a lot of these jobs, they don't pay great, and you kind of get pigeonholed, you know, and they're tough to find too, you know, because when people find these good gigs, they end up holding on to them, you know, they don't want to give them up. So
I'm going to hit real quick because you bring up two really good important parts. The first and most important is there's a lot of cool shit that we can do in these careers, but a lot of it doesn't have carryover to the civilian world. And so I tell people all the time, if you want to go do that, great. But once you get there, start learning the backside of stuff. So like when you're in the teams, if you can, start learning about budgets and purchasing and all that kind of garbage.
Right.
The flip side is, and this goes back to your story and all the times that you went through SEAL training, don't be a shitbag.
Yeah.
Make friends with people, but be a good person.
Right.
So that when they're out and they're in their position, when a position comes up, they call you as opposed to somebody else.
Totally. And that was the thing too, is like Greg was able to translate my resume into a safety heavy resume. It's like, hey, look, this guy's worked on gun ranges. He's worked with canines. He's worked with foreign partners, you know, and trained them how to shoot. He knows about safety, you know? And even going through these OSHA classes and stuff like that, it's like a lot of the stuff is like, yeah, no kidding. You know, it's like it's there because somebody didn't have common sense or slipped up, or it's all written in blood, you know, just like everything that I know.
There's a reason Preparation H says don't take orally. Because somebody tried to at one time.
Like Johnny Knoxville, you know, it's like, I mean, but to your point, it's like, you know, even going into the teams, like we were told, like, and I believe this is, you know, you don't treat the techs and you don't treat the support staff like they're shitbags because they're not SEALs. Now, a lot of them are shitbags, but there are some really good dudes and gals out there that get you what you need, and they're more willing to do it if you're not a dick to them, you know? So it's like, I got a buddy I still golf with who, you know, he's a GM. I
wouldn't have pictured you as a golfer.
Dude, look, I know we talked about earlier how you don't like golf, but the thing with golf that I like is it reminds me a lot of shooting. It's like, you know, you got your driver, which is like your long range weapon. You know, you got your irons, which is like your AR, and then you got your putters, your pistol. And it's like all the same fundamentals too, you know? It's like, and you know, I mean, I suck at it, but it's fun to play, you know? But yeah, I feel like that was the other thing. It's like getting out, like I had to like start finding hobbies too, because when I was in the teams, my job was my hobbies. So I was going out to bars on my free time. It's like, I'm not going to go like hunt, you know? It's like,
did you find that transition hard?
Getting out
and being a civilian?
Oh yeah. I'm still like struggling with it, but I get, you know, I still go to the gym. I still do all the training that I've done, still run. I don't swim as much, but I want to get back into it just because my body's like begging me.
You were so good at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously. Why would you give that up? No, I started trying to figure out like, all right, well, what do I like to do? It's like, I do like being in the water. I do like being on the water, you know? So like fishing, surfing, you know, golf, hunting, you know, archery, stuff like that. So I've been trying to like pick up like different little hobbies and whatnot, but you know, with having a job, having kids, a wife, a life, you know, I kind of like started zeroing in on a couple things, which is like the shooting piece, which I'll never give up. And then, golf, which I'm just addicted to. And then, you know, I like surfing, but I'm further out from the beach than I have ever been. So I don't make it into the water as much, but yeah, man, I feel like, you know, transitioning out, it's tough, you know, and I always listen to different people talk about it. And I feel like everybody's still trying to figure out a solution. Like, how do we get veterans, whether they're special operators or not, how do we get them into good places when they get out? How can we translate their skills? You know, and it's like, it seems like networking or some sort of education is really what gets you, you know, where it really is how you land in a good place. I mean, I think that's why, you know, foundations like SEAL Future Foundation, Beyond the Brotherhood, Honor Foundation, I'm sure there's plenty more out there. You know, these are good for guys to get involved with and connect with people and network with people, because I mean, we do bring a lot of skills to the table, and it's not just skills, it's also like personality. Like, are you a good person? Like, are you going to do your job? Are you going to do it well? Are you going to follow through? Are you, you know, can you talk to people? Or are you just like, you know, going through the Honor Foundation, there was like, I'll never forget, there's this like salty 30-year plus Master Chief who was getting out of the Navy. All he's ever known is being a SEAL, which, you know, I envy in a way, but I saw the look on his face when he was like, he realized like he's done in the Navy and he is retiring and he's going out into the civilian sector. And it was just kind of like, he almost looked scared, you know, it looked kind of hopeless. And I'm like, dude, like, so I need to, I mean, it's important to stay, you know, close to your brothers and your sisters and stay close to your community, but also realize that there's a lot of other communities out there that you can be a part of, and a lot of other, networks that you can get involved with. It's like you can't just like, you can't sit back and wait for it to come to you. You have to get out there, and you have to put yourself out there and be willing to, like I said, be willing to look stupid. Like, I feel like for so long, like, I was afraid to look stupid or ask stupid questions because I didn't want, somebody to think, oh, how do you not know that or whatever. But it's like now, especially in this job that I'm in now, it's like, it's a brand new job. It's a brand new industry. I know little about it. But I'm not afraid to ask the questions because it's like, dude, I don't know. So tell me. But it's funny because in the 6 months that I was training and learning and getting boned up on the job, my predecessor, he'd ask me, he's like, so you got any questions? I'm like, no. And it's because 2 reasons. One is I don't know what my questions are yet, and 2, everything's right. Like, every job we went to, there was no issues. It's like, this is what right looks like. So for 6 months, it was like, yeah, everything looks good, I guess. It's like, on to the next one. And it was just like, everything's cool. The day he retired December 31st, 2024. I took over full-time January 1st, 2025. That first week, we had 2 accidents. There was 0 accidents in 6 months. And I've averaged 1 accident a week since then. So now I'm like, okay, now I have questions. Like, now who do I talk to? How do I figure this out? It's like, now problems are coming my way. And it's like, look, people throw out an acronym. I'm like, wait, hold up. Like, what does that stand for? Oh, okay. And I'm not ashamed or afraid to ask because it's like, I want to learn. I want to know. You ask enough dumb questions, eventually you won't be dumb anymore, right? That's what Jordan Peterson says. I get that. That makes sense. And it's like, it's being willing to put yourself out there and look stupid and learn something new. It's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you should always be a student. You should always be, trying something new, and that helps you keep your edge too. Like, if you're one of these guys that's going to be 25 years in the teams and then do another 20 years as a contractor doing the same job, it's like, yeah, that's cool. You it, and you make whatever salary you're making, good for you, but how much are you growing too? How much are you actually learning, or are you just a know-it-all? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I mean, I'm still figuring it out. I don't have obviously all the answers, and I'm not like the best player in the game here, but I mean, I'm still playing. Oh,
you said something, and I have these moments talking to guests where it just kind of, my brain starts wandering, and not in a bad way.
I'm boring you?
No, it's the way you said it. You were sitting at the Honor Foundation, and there was this senior chief getting out after 35 years, and he looked lost and he looked scared. And in my mind, I'm thinking, imagine if you took a young man or a young woman and put them in prison at 18 years old. And then at 40 years old, after 30 years in prison, saying, hey, you're out. Go be a civilian. Go be a real person again. How freaking scared would they be?
Yeah, bro.
In a weird way, it's the exact same thing.
Dude, prison and the military are the only 2 places where you say you served. You serve time. And you do get institutionalized.
That's the thing, is because so many of us come to these careers at such a young age where we don't have life experience. We don't have the maturity to understand things. And then we grow up in this environment.
Right.
And if we don't have the right people in our corner through our career saying, hey, be thinking about when you get out, be thinking about saving some money, be thinking about getting your degree, create your network, all that kind of stuff, you get to the end and you're like, shit, now what?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because I had like my mentor. I always try to make sure that I had a big brother, like I said, I'm the oldest of 3. I didn't really have mentors growing up, but once I got in the Navy, even in Guantanamo Bay, like I got a buddy I still talk to that, they would tell us like, hey, pick a mentor. And I was like, hey, you seem cool. Like, help guide me through this, and he would. And we're still friends to this day. But I always, and then going into the teams, whether it was in a platoon or at Trade It, like I always had somebody that I'm like, looked up to, wanted to be like, was squared away. And I was like, hey man, like, just do a sanity check on me. Like, is my gear straight? Am I doing the right thing? Like, what can I improve on? Like, and, to your point, like my big brother in the dog teams, he was like, yo, like get these quals, because like the 9502 qual was the one that I needed to get the shooting job when I got out. I didn't know that, but he's like, hey, get this and then go on and get your, MTS, your master training specialist. Like I can't get that now, but I could have got it while I was in the teams. I didn't stick around long enough to be able to actually get it. And even getting the 9502, I'm like, man, like this class is kind of like, it's kind of common sense, it's kind of like, I learned a few things, sure. But I mean, a lot of it's just getting that signature on a certificate, and being able to present it and be like, hey, I sat through this and I learned something, it's like, I've got the credentials, and just setting yourself up, because yeah, man,
well, even if you boil it down to education, for the most part, all they want is that piece of paper so they can check the box, bachelor's degree, master's degree. Now, obviously, if you've got a desire to be a lawyer or a doctor, the college you go to gets you into a network that helps you.
Sure.
But if you're just the average Joe who's just looking to check the box, so when a hiring manager goes, do you have a bachelor's degree? Again, it's just that signature. It's that piece of paper.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, 90% of it is common sense.
Right.
It's just it's going through the effort to get it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like proof that you're willing to do, go through the grind and do the legwork and do the homework to get it, So it's like, yeah, I mean, going back to school now is like, it's a new frontier for me. So I haven't been in school. I mean, I guess I go to classes and stuff like that for, OSHA and, whatever other classes I've been through, but like to be in like a school, turning in papers and writing them and, doing homework and stuff like that. It's like, it's going to take a little adjusting. So it's like just kind of preparing myself for that.
For your own business model that you've got in your head, do you have a date that you want to try to have it operational by?
As soon as possible. I've still got like some stuff I need to tighten up on like the admin side of things. Like I started a couple other businesses that didn't work out. And I just want to make sure that those are scrubbed before I put my name on like an LLC or whatever else. Cause I was dealing with stuff that I thought was finalized just last year. And I'm like, dude, I thought this was washed away, so I don't want to like, cause I get people all the time asking me like, hey man, like when are we going to the range? Like, let's go shoot. It's like, look, I want to take you, but I also want to make sure that I'm doing this right and in a way that makes sense for both of us, because I just don't want to like, I don't want to do onesie, twosie, willy-nilly kind of like, oh, let's just go out there. Like, let's make this make sense, and then that way, like we can get content, we can get, we can build a network, we can build a community, we can bring your friends, we can like actually all like help each other out. Like I got a buddy who's a photographer and, he does video and stuff like that. It's like, that's the kind of stuff I need to help build out my brand. And he's willing to trade, shooting lessons for, shooting content. And I'm like, yeah, cool. Let me get my shit straight first. And then we'll do that because, that's where I'm at. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to get it all kind of going this year. I've already talked to a few people about like what I want to do. And, yeah, it's pretty exciting. Some of the stuff that I want to bring to the table and like transition drills, stuff like that. I have one drill that's going to be like my flagship drill. That's going to kind of like be the staple of the brand of the tactical shooting piece that I'm pretty excited about because nobody's really doing it right now, and it's all like, I don't want to give too much away, but it's all custom. It's all custom to each shooter. Like it's one drill that is customized to whoever's doing it. So it's pretty cool stuff. I need to get my affairs in order.
You're somebody who's, and I appreciate you taking your time to come on this podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
As somebody's putting yourself out there, do you get contacted by younger men who are looking to, and I still say women because no woman's made it through yet, but are you getting contacted by those guys who are looking to go into the teams and kind of asking for advice?
Yeah. I mean, people will reach out to me on Instagram, and shoot me a message or whatever, and I try to guide them. I got a buddy. He's got a program called SOCOM Athlete. I don't know if you've heard of it. His name's Jason Sweet. Super cool, great dude. But he runs this program where he brings in young men who want to join, and whether it's SEALs, Rangers, Marines, like whatever they want to do, some sort of like, hard hitting training and job, he brings them in and he puts them through a PST and he puts them through different training evolutions, and he does like a hell day, so he'll take them out to the beach and put them through like, just give them a taste. And, he's had guys make it through the training and as like become SEALs, become Rangers. He's posting pictures that, of guys that graduated, blocks their face out.
Right.
But like, last January, Chris Chambers, another Maryland boy, and Nate Ingram, they died out at sea on an op, and Nate,
Were these the two that went off the ship?
Yeah. So Nate, he, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure he was a graduate of the SOCOM Hell Day. So I'll go and volunteer because he comes out here and he does training up near Pendleton. And so I'll go and I've volunteered with him, I think 2 or 3 times now, and just help him out. And I kind of give the kids my 30-second elevator speech and say, hey man, I did 4 first phases. I did 3 hell weeks. Like, this is good training. And, if you want to know more, here's my card and I'll be happy to guide you through it. And I'm willing to work with you with training programs and stuff like that. It's like, I mean, I got to a point where it's like I had my training program dialed to go back to buds. Like I knew exactly how to train for it. And even beyond that, like, because, going out on a mission is different than getting beat on the beach, like you got to train for that as well. So I'll talk to young men about it and just be like, hey, this is what it is. And, it really comes down to you and how bad you want it, a little bit of luck. And, I'm here to help because, I mean, honestly, man, it's like, there's still that part of me that wishes I was like in that community, like in the brotherhood still, and I see my brothers from time to time, some more than others. And it's always, just pick up right where you left off. It's always good people. That's why I love these SFF events, which that reminds me, man, got a little SEAL Future Foundation coin for you there, brother.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Very much appreciate it.
They're a great community, man. And, a lot of guys that I haven't seen in a while, they'll show up and, it's just, you pick up right where you left off and then you're training people how to shoot. You're meeting good people, you're networking, just hanging out, eating good food. And they have different events they put on. And, it's like, hey, my son wants to be a SEAL, or, hey, my brother's going through it. You might give him a call. It's like, yeah, man, for sure. Like, anything I can do to help, it's, I'm not in that fight anymore, but if I can help you prepare for it, I'll give you my best advice and wish you well.
Something else I like to get personal. And what I mean by that is starting the conversation you talked about when your mom and dad divorced, you kind of lost relationship with both of them. But then you mentioned the kickoff to Hell Week, your dad and your brother came down.
Yeah.
Did you going in the military bring you back closer to your dad?
Oh, for sure. My mom too. Like, I mean, I've got good relationships with them now. I just got a chance to visit them a couple weeks ago.
They still in Maryland?
My mom's in Maryland. My dad's in Florida. I went down to Florida for a convention for the job that I'm doing now, the safety stuff, Ironworkers, which those guys are just a bunch of rough and tumble badasses themselves. So it's a
Seals
lot of
without M-Force?
Pretty much, man. It's like I tell them, because it's just funny going into like that world. They look at you like, oh, you're not an iron worker. I'm like, look, the iron I worked with shot rounds. All right. I've got nothing but respect for you guys, because you're up high and you're doing hard work and it's long days, and I respect it, man. But yeah, while I was down there for that convention, I got to see my dad for a few days, and then I jammed up to Maryland and got to see my mom. And actually one of the head guy, Kevin Hilton, he's the head guy for the Ironworkers Impact, and his son is going back to Buds here in a few months. And I've been talking with him, and he was up in Maryland when I was up there. He was like Virginia. I didn't get a chance to catch up with him, but he seems like he's got a good line on Buds and all that stuff. So I'll be catching up with him when he comes out here and just talking with him on the phone and stuff like that. Just whatever I can do to just kind of, either point him in the right direction or give him some advice. But again, it comes down to what's in between your ears, like your headspace, and just knowing that like the training really doesn't start until you don't want to do it anymore. Like when you feel like this sucks and I want to quit, it's like, that's when you gotta like turn your dial and change your mentality and just like lean into it. It's like, I feel like when it gets hard, like you have to be hard, like be hard when it's hard, just lean into it, push back, and don't try to just take the punch, just go for it, I
think that's a great place to stop. I appreciate your time. Thanks for sharing your story.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on, Paul. It's been an honor.
As always, thank you for listening or watching the episode. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out on social media or send me an email. The links are all in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you're not already, please follow the podcast on whatever platform you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe on YouTube. And if you would, please leave me a rating. Ratings do two things. You can tell me what I need to fix or improve, and the more ratings also gets the podcast recommended to more people. Another ask, please share the podcast with anyone you think could benefit from and enjoy it. And last, don't forget, sign up for the newsletter.